Chapter 2787. News. He Chanqian seemed to guess Jian Chen's thoughts. Yang Yutian, hear me out. Don't think about refining 100 Tribulations God King pills by yourself. This pill is nowhere near as simple as you think it is. Really? Then can you tell me in detail just how it's different? Jian Chen was interested. He currently possessed over 30,000 stalks of God King grass, and they were all high grade. In order to limit the strength of outsiders, high-grade God King grass had never been traded away. The organizations in the 100 Saint City probably did not even know about their existence. As a result, he would never reveal the high-grade God King grass before others, just in case it led to unnecessary trouble. However, if he could not refine God King grass into God King pills, they would be useless, and if he wanted to turn them into 100 Tribulation God King pills without exposing them, he had to refine the pills himself. Of course, the 100 Tribulations should be removed from 100 Tribulations God King pills if they were refined from high-grade God King grass. He Chanqian explained, Yang Yutian, do you know why 100 Tribulations God King pills refined from 100 Tribulations grass can allow a regular cultivator to become a God King in such a short amount of time? Why something as wondrous as 100 Tribulations grass has never appeared in the Boundless Saints world, yet it just comes from the miniature Dark Star world? That's because their formation has something to do with the grand exalt of the Dark Star race that died? Jian Chen said. He Chanqian nodded. That's right. The formation of 100 Tribulations grass is indeed connected to the grand exalt of the Dark Star race. Perhaps it's closely linked to the ancient beast that became the Dark Star world too. However, it's exactly because 100 Tribulations grass is connected to experts like that refining 100 Tribulations God King pills from them is anything but easy. That's because 100 Tribulation grass hides a mysterious and powerful energy. Even the great elders of our various clans are unable to explain whether it comes from the grand exalt of the Dark Star race or the vicious beast that became the world of the fallen beast. However, whenever a stalk of 100 Tribulations grass is refined into 100 Tribulations God King pill, this energy will erupt. It's so powerful that it's well beyond what you and I can withstand with our cultivation. It's impossible to suppress it without a cultivation at chaotic prime, much less refine it into pills. Whether it's our Heavenly Crane clan or the other peak organizations, they all require the combined efforts of 2 chaotic prime great elders in order to successfully refine 100 Tribulations God King pills. You can't refine 100 Tribulations God King pills without a cultivation at chaotic prime. Just refining the pill is so difficult already, not to mention you need to add in various priceless materials too as you refine it. These aren't conditions that an independent cultivator can fulfill. As a matter of fact, many organizations with chaotic primes can't even afford to refine 100 Tribulations God King pills. That's because the cost of refining the pill and the benefits derived are on completely different levels. Only peak organizations like us who possess foundations among the Dark Star race will be willing to expend tremendous effort into refining these pills to protect our interests among the Dark Star race. He Chanqian gazed at Jian Chen deeply. She continued, Yang Yutian, I know it's a piece of cake for you to kill powerful life-devouring beasts to exchange for 100 Tribulations grass with the Dark Star race. You might even be able to accumulate a large stock of 100 Tribulations grass in a short time through this method. But I still hope you will offer these 100 Tribulations grasses to our Heavenly Crane clan, as they're completely useless to you. There is no way you can make use of them. Thank you for explaining, Miss Chen. However, I'm still interested in the pill formula. I'm even willing to use 100 Tribulations grass to exchange for the pill formula. May I ask just how many stalks I need for the Heavenly Crane clan to exchange the pill formula with me? Jian Chen did not change his mind. It was not like he did not have chaotic primes. He had one in the Tian Yuan clan right now. There was him too. If he could make another breakthrough with the chaotic body, he would basically be a chaotic prime. Seeing how insistent Jian Chen was, He Chanqian knew any further attempts at convincing him otherwise would be useless. She sighed gently. All right. Since you insist on getting your hands on the pill formula, I'll ask about it for you. However, this isn't something I can decide on, and I don't have the pill formula either. I'll have to send people back to ask the seniors in my clan. Afterwards, He Chanqian used a secret technique to pen a message before sending people out to ask the upper echelon in her clan in the outside world. Very soon, the reply from the outside world reached the 100 Saint City. He Chanqian received 2 messages. After looking through them, she told Jian Chen rather helplessly, the clan has replied. The clan paid a hefty price in exchange for the formula to refine 100 Tribulations God King pills. and they have an agreement to keep it a secret. Jian Chen frowned from that. He never expected the pill formula that almost every organization in the 100 Saint City possessed would actually be so difficult to obtain. This surprised him a little. At this moment, He Qianqian continued, though, I think you'll be interested in the other news. As she said that, He Qianqian took out the second feather and checked the contents with her secret technique. Her expression immediately changed, overcome by shock. She seemed dumbstruck. Only after quite a while did she return to her senses. Her chest heaved up and down, only demonstrating how perturbed she was. She only managed to recover after a very long time. Afterwards, she sank into silent thought before seemingly deciding on something in the very end. With a flip of her hand, a jade slip immediately appeared in her hand. She left some of the information in the jade slip and passed it to Jian Chen. At the same time she said, "This is the news I received from a great elder in my clan. Regular cultivators have no right to know this. Once you've read through it, please destroy it." Jian Chen accepted the jade slip rather curiously and sent in the senses of his soul. The jade slip recorded a few events that happened on the ice pole plane. In particular, it had a detailed introduction to the Ice Goddess Hall and the Moon God Hall. Nan Patian of the Moon God Hall was mentioned too. In general, it said that the Ice Goddess had already died and her remains were in the depths of the Ice Goddess Hall. Nan Patian of the Moon God Hall and one of the 4 protectors of the Ice Goddess Hall, Wu Han, had already joined the Flame Reverend. The Flame Reverend wanted to get his hands on the Ice Goddess remains, so he attacked the Ice Goddess Hall through Nan Patian, and then he attempted to find the remains through Wu Han. Even though the peak organizations of the Ice Pole Plane understood the Flame Venerable's plans, they were powerless to stop him. As a result, all they could do was sit aside and watch this unfold. Although there were also a few other experts who desired the Ice Goddess remains, they all backed down out of fright due to the Flame Venerable's name. That was because the Flame Venerable was a supreme expert who had reached the 9th heavenly layer of Grand Prime. Even if all the peak organizations on the Ice Pole Plane worked together, they would not be the opponent of an expert like the Flame Venerable. However, Jian Chen also learned from the Jade Slip that while the Flame Venerable had schemed for many years, he was still unable to enter the depths of the Ice Goddess Hall, as the Ice Goddess Hall was a Grand Exalt Supreme God artifact. Even with its artifact spirit missing, it could still block the attacks of 9th heavenly layer Grand Primes with its defenses and pure toughness. Destroying a God artifact like that required power on par with Grand Exalts. A few decades ago, the previous daughter of the Moon God appeared silently. She was discovered by the Hall Master of the Moon God Hall, Nan Patian. They engaged in an intense battle. In the end, the daughter of the Moon God was heavily injured and captured. At this moment, another piece of news floated through Jian Chen's head, which immediately made his heart tighten. His emotions surged. Fairy Hao Yu has been heavily injured and captured. At that moment, Jian Chen felt like he had been struck by a bolt of lightning. His mind shuddered. Fairy Hao Yu had actually fallen into Nan Potion's hands. With the grievances that existed between Nan Patian and her, nothing good could come out of that. Half a year ago, the Empyrean Demon Lord suddenly descended upon the Ice Pole Plane. The Hall Master of the Moon God Hall, Nan Patian, fled into the Ice Goddess Hall. Afterwards, the Empyrean Demon Lord forced his way into the Ice Goddess Hall alone, slaying 2 saints under the Flame Venerable's command as well as the 3 ancestors of the Huffing clan. Nan Patian of the Moon God Hall also fell. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2788. He Qianqian's suspicion. When he saw the news at the end, Jian Chen became extremely excited. He was overjoyed. Senior Mo Tianyun actually killed his way onto the Ice Pole Plane, even forcing his way into the Ice Goddess Hall and slaying the fleeing Hall Master of the Moon God Hall, Nan Patian. Nan Patian is a colossal enemy of Fairy Hao Yu. With his death, that's basically revenge for her. I just wonder how she is doing, Jian Chen thought. As soon as he remembered that Fairy Hao Yu's fate was unknown, he became worried. I hope nothing happens to Fairy Hao Yu, Jian Chen prayed inside. He did not have a lot of friends, but Fairy Hao Yu happened to be one of them. Right now, he was so worried for her that he was almost tempted to immediately venture to the Ice Pole Plane. However, Sacred Feather was still trapped, so he was forced to remain in the Dark Star world. This was because everything had already happened on the ice pole plane. If something had really happened to Fairy Hao Yu, it would be very difficult for him to do anything even if he rushed over. However, the situation with the Dark Star race was different. Sacred Feather's fate was completely within his grasp. As Jian Chen worried for Fairy Hao Yu, He Chanqian was greatly perturbed. She seemed like she had been completely shaken up, muttering in a daze. The 3 ancestors of the Huffing clan have actually all died. This can't be true. This can't be true. Jian Chen suppressed his worries for Fairy Hao Yu when he heard her and asked, "What kind of organization is the Huffing clan on the Ice Pole Plane?" On the Ice Pole Plane, the Huffing clan ranks 4th, right below our Heavenly Crane clan. However, I've heard from the great elders that while the Huffing clan ranks below us, their strength is basically the same as ours, with no great difference. Our Heavenly Crane clan only outranks them because we're stronger in terms of great elders, He Chanqian said in a daze. The deaths of the 3 ancestors of the Huffing clan seemed to have an extremely great impact on her, such that her face paled slightly. Who is the Empyrean Demon Lord? He's actually killed the 3 ancestors of the Huffing clan. That's 3 Grand Primes. How did they just die like that? That's a difference in intermediate strength. In other words, the peak strength of the Huffing clan and the Heavenly Crane clan are similar. Jian Chen was not overly shocked by the deaths of the 3 ancestors of the Huffing clan. Instead, the strength of the Heavenly Crane clan weighed in his mind. Mo Tianyun could easily destroy the Huffing clan that ranked 4th. In other words, it probably would not be too difficult for him to destroy the Heavenly Crane clan either. I wonder just what Heavenly Layer Senior Mo Tianyun has reached as a Grand Prime, Jian Chen thought. He pondered that for a moment before asking He Chanqian, "Miss Qian, may I ask why you've told me this news?" He Chanqian sucked in a deep breath and slowly calmed down her turbulent emotions. Very soon, she suppressed all of her chaotic thoughts and calmed down once more. An icy presence radiated from her body naturally. "Weren't you interested in the news of the Ice Pole Plane? In order to satisfy your curiosity, I specially asked a great elder in my clan about this. Technically speaking, this information is still something beyond my reach. It's all because I'm in the Dark Star world that the great elders have done all that they can to fulfill my needs. That's the only reason why I received this information," He Chanqian said. "You're mistaken, Miss Qian. I was only a little curious about the Ice Pole Plane because of the Heavenly Crane clan. How can you say that I'm interested?" Jian Chen laughed. He Chanqian's eyes flashed. She stared straight at Jian Chen as she said seriously, "Yang Yutian, I might not be a particularly clever person, but don't treat me like a complete fool. In the 100 Saint City, there are many organizations much more powerful than our Heavenly Crane clan. With your talent and battle prowess, you could easily join an organization more powerful than ours, and you'll be favored no matter which organization you join. Yet, you just had to choose our Heavenly Crane clan. And a few days ago, you asked me about the Ice Pole Plane when you just returned to the Heavenly Crane clan. You said you were just curious and wanted to know a little more about the Ice Pole Plane, but you were completely unaware that your expressions had already sold you out. Back then, your expression was definitely not simple curiosity. Instead, you responded like you cared very, very much. There's one last point. During the banquet earlier today, so many peak organizations wanted to recruit you, even offering you lavish conditions. Any single one of them is tempting enough that a god king born as an independent cultivator would never decline, yet you were completely unfazed. As a matter of fact, your gaze remained as clear as ever. What does that mean? It means that the offers from the clans could not even pique your interest. Am I right? Reaching there, He Chanqian paused. She stared at Jian Chen deeply before continuing, "Yang Yutian, it definitely wasn't a coincidence when you chose to join our Heavenly Crane clan back then. Instead, you did it on purpose. I'm very curious about the reason why you chose our Heavenly Crane clan." "Miss Qian, you're overthinking. I had no reason in choosing your Heavenly Crane clan. If you insist that I did, then that's to find something to rely on in the Dark Star world. After all, I'm just a stranger in a strange place among the Dark Star race. If I continue traveling alone, I might not even be able to take another step further. As for those offers from the clans, I'll be honest with you. Their offers did not interest me. I might be an independent cultivator, but I'm still an independent cultivator who had a fortuitous encounter and obtained the legacy of a primordial realm expert. I obviously possess some resources for myself. And finally, the Ice Pole Plane. I plan on visiting the ice pole plane one day in the future, which is why I've been paying relatively more attention to news regarding it. I want to understand the plane and plan for the future. Jian Chen fended her off with composure. He Qianqian did not continue. She simply stared straight at Jian Chen with her shining eyes, as if she wanted to see through his thoughts. She clearly still had her doubts over Jian Chen's explanation. Jian Chen stared at He Qianqian too. His face was filled with helplessness and innocence, as well as a slightly bitter smile. Though, speaking of which, He Qianqian's eyes really were beautiful. Her pupils were extremely bright, and her large eyes were like black gemstones, shining with light that seemed to penetrate the hearts of people. Combined with her alluring bleak appearance, it possessed a deadly charm to men. At this moment, an old man who seemed to be a caretaker walked in from outside. He reported, "Miss, I've just received news. They're inviting all the organizations to venture to the Pantheon Divine Hall." "Understood. You can go." He Qianqian withdrew her gaze. She no longer looked at Jian Chen, gazing in the direction of the Pantheon Divine Hall at the center of the 100 Saint City instead. "I don't care what you say. As long as you're in the Dark Star world, you're still a member of our Heavenly Crane clan. You're forbidden from doing anything that might harm our Heavenly Crane clan." "Of course. Let's go. Let's go to the Pantheon Divine Hall." They've summoned everyone there probably because an organization has already come up with an idea to fulfill the 5th Divine Hall's request. It's a pity that our Heavenly Crane clan is powerless against the 5th Divine Hall's request. There might not be a lot of time left before our Heavenly Crane clan will be forced to withdraw from the Dark Star world. Filled with pity and regret, He Qianqian made her way out of the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall with Jian Chen and directly headed to the Pantheon Divine Hall. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2789. Ambition in the Pantheon Divine Hall. Over 100 seats surrounded a large table. When Jian Chen arrived with He Qianqian, they discovered most of the seats were already filled. Jian Chen was familiar with everyone who had the right to sit down. Although he could not exactly name all of them, he had seen them in the Two World Mountains. This was because all of these people were representatives of organizations. They were not all god kings. There were a few overgods among them. The people he had clashed with in the Two World Mountains, Chu Jie, Kong Feiying, Zhou Wenbin, Gong Rui's, and Zhou Ji, happened to be among them too. When they saw Jian Chen arrive, Jin Hong, Ping Yixing, and the prodigies who had a high recognition of him all stood up and clasped their hands at him, giving him a simple greeting. As for Chu Jie, Kong Feiying, Zhou Wenbin, Gong Rui's, and Zhou Ji, their faces all sank, and their eyes shone with veiled killing intent. Li Qingshan glanced at the 5 of them deeply before shifting his gaze away, standing behind He Qianqian like nothing had happened at all. Jian Chen could obviously sense their killing intent. They hid their killing intent very well, enough to fool everyone present except for Jian Chen. They were just 5 god kings. He had never even taken them seriously. After waiting for a while, everyone finally arrived in the Pantheon Divine Hall. At this moment, a middle-aged man who seemed to be in his 40s broke the silence. "I've assembled you all here today to discuss the matters regarding the conditions put forth by the 5th Divine Hall. Right now, the 7th Divine Hall resents our 100 Saints city deeply. If we want to remain here, we'll need the 5th Divine Hall's protection, so we have to fulfill the 5th Divine Hall's requests no matter what." When he reached there, the middle-aged man paused for a moment before continuing, "I do believe you've all received the response from your various clans. May I ask which clans or organizations are able to complete the mission from the 5th Divine Hall?" "Yang Yutian. This person is a member of the Heavenly Lightning clan. Lei is his surname, and his name is a single word, Yun. He's called Lei Yun." As the middle-aged man spoke, He Qianqian introduced him to Jian Chen secretly. After Lei Yun finished speaking, Hao Chen of the Hao family said, "I can see that you're teeming with confidence, fellow Lei Yun. It is like you have a plan already. Your Heavenly Lightning clan must have found a method to deal with it already." Lei Yun smiled with that. "I really can't hide it from Brother Hao Chen. It's just like what you said. Through the efforts of the seniors of our Heavenly Lightning clan, we've already found a method to fulfill the 5th Divine Hall's request." As he said that, Lei Yun scanned the crowd. He became rather arrogant and said, May I ask if there's anyone else present who can fulfill the fifth divine hall's request? I've received news from our Jade Pill clan that our ancestors have already emerged from seclusion. They're personally creating a pill formula. With their mastery over the way of alchemy, it shouldn't be difficult for them to come up with a pill that hasn't reached God tier but exceeds God tier pills. I do believe the pill should be refined before long, and then it will be delivered to the Dark Star world, said the prodigy of the Jade Pill sect. His eyes met Lei Yun's before both of them smiled mysteriously. Afterwards, no one else in the Pantheon Divine Hall said anything. Many were dejected. Apart from the Heavenly Lightning Clan and the Jade Pill sect, there were actually no one else among the several dozen peak organizations that could fulfill the fifth Divine Hall's request. Seeing that, Lei Yun's smile grew even heavier, as if victory was within his grasp. He continued, "We can't let this happen, can we? After all, the Vice Hall Master of the Fifth Divine Hall said the Fifth Divine Hall will protect whichever organization that is able to provide it with what it needs. Now that only our Heavenly Lightning Clan and the Jade Pill sect can fulfill the Fifth Divine Hall's request, wouldn't that mean only the two of us can remain in the 100 Saint City safely? Won't the other organizations lose their footing in the 100 Saint City? But we can't let that happen. When we built the 100 Saint City, all of our clans and organizations had put in a lot of effort. If you just leave, our Heavenly Lightning Clan and the Jade Pill sect will be left alone in the huge 100 Saint City." When they heard that, the faces of many of the prodigies present became extremely twisted. There were also other people whose eyes shone, looking at Lei Yun and the prodigy from the Jade Pill sect like they were in thought. "I do have a suggestion, but I don't know whether it'll work or not." The prodigy from the Jade Pill sect stood up. His eyes twinkled with hidden excitement as he said, "If, and I say if, there aren't any other clans or sects left in the 100 Saint City, just our Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Lightning Clan, wouldn't that mean the Fifth Divine Hall would be able to protect the entire city?" When he heard that, Hao Ran snickered. He stared at the prodigy from the Jade Pill sect rather coldly and said, "So what your Jade Pill sect is trying to say is for us clans and sects that can't fulfill the Fifth Divine Hall's request to join your Jade Pill sect or the Heavenly Lightning Clan?" The prodigy from the Jade Pill sect smiled. "That's just a thought I came up with. Within the Dark Star world, all of our organizations in the 100 Saint City can join with the Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Lightning Clan and follow us. But once you leave the Dark Star world, you're not bound by anything. We'll still be able to go our own ways." Ha ha ha, that suggestion isn't necessarily impossible. Of course, it's just a temporary measure. Just something on the surface. This is all just so everyone can maintain their footing in the Dark Star world, for the sake of your organization's interests. It'll have nothing to do with your rankings in the Saints' world. Lei Yun chuckled. "You actually want so many organizations to join your Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Lightning Clan such that we'll all have to follow you? Are you out of your mind? How can you think of something like that? Aren't you afraid of biting off more than you can chew and choking yourself to death?" Man Yun Jun of the Man family sneered. "Jade Pill sect, Heavenly Lightning Clan, how bold of you! Aren't you afraid of offending our 100 battle clans such that you'll suffer in the future?" Baijan Xiong of the 100 battle clans sneered as well. His gaze was filled with disdain. "Please watch yourselves, the two of you. If you anger the ancestor of our Hao family, just your Jade Pill sect and Heavenly Lightning Clan probably won't be enough to endure our Hao family's wrath." Hao Chen's face sank too, and he wore a cold smile. In short, the suggestion from the Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Lightning Clan basically angered all the organizations present. Everyone responded with glares and sneers. Only very few clans showed interest, remaining quiet. "Please calm down, please calm down. This is just a suggestion, that's all. We had absolutely no intentions of insulting you. As for whether it'll work out or not, it'll still depend on what you think, is it not?" Lei Yun of the Heavenly Lightning Clan smiled in a hurry in an apologetic manner. "If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters." Chapter 2790. Ancestral Sacred Earth. No one in the Pantheon Divine Hall said anything after that. The atmosphere became rather serious. As the faces of the prodigies present became twisted, the eyes of others shone with hesitance. They could already tell that the Heavenly Lightning Clan and the Jade Pill sect were planning to work together. The two organizations wanted to use this opportunity to rearrange the profits of the 100 Saint City so that they could maximize their own shares. However, everyone present struggled to accept the suggestion that the Heavenly Lightning Clan and the Jade Pill sect had put forward, as many of them came from clans that were much more powerful than the Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Lightning Clan. If the Archean clan behind the Heavenly Lightning Clan was ignored, there were even a few peak organizations in the Pantheon Divine Hall on completely different levels to the Jade Pill sect and Heavenly Lightning Clan. Their clans were so powerful in the Saints' world, yet they had to yield to the Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Lightning Clan, two organizations that were nowhere close to their own clans in the Dark Star world. None of the prodigies in the Divine Hall could accept this. Let alone the organizations stronger than the Heavenly Lightning Clan and the Jade Pill sect, even a few organizations weaker than them struggled to accept this. After all, as organizations that stood at the peak of the Saints' world, they were all existences that dominated an entire region, the absolute lords within their territories. They were obviously prideful. They would never be willing to depend on others. However, their interests in the Darkstar world were just too great. If they lost their foundation among the Darkstar race, they could still purchase the items of the Darkstar world from other organizations, but they would be at their whim as a result. Moreover, the items they would receive would be the leftovers after everyone else had picked out what they wanted. Obtaining some of the extremely rare materials would become much more difficult. Directly exchanging for them in the Darkstar world would be far easier. As a result, if they ignored the pride and dignity of their organizations, the suggestion from the Heavenly Lightning Clan and the Jade Pill sect might have been acceptable. Even He Qianqian's gaze began to waver, clearly interested. However, her gaze was primarily composed of conflicted emotions. Standing behind He Qianqian, Jian Chen could clearly sense her reaction. He asked secretly, "Miss Chen, you represent the Heavenly Crane Clan. Is your Heavenly Crane Clan willing to forsake your pride and dignity as a peak clan just for these resources from the Darkstar world? And once you agree to the Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Lightning Clan suggestion, they'll be the ones in charge of the 100 Saint City. Even if your Heavenly Crane Clan can maintain a foothold in the Darkstar world, the resources you receive will probably come from a selection after the Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Lightning Clan have taken what they wanted." Yang Yutian, you don't understand. You have absolutely no idea just how important some of the rare heavenly resources in the Darkstar world are to our Heavenly Crane Clan. If we lose everything here, then not only will the nurturing of our juniors slow down, but even the battle prowess of our upper echelon will be affected, He Qianqian replied extremely sternly. She hesitated before continuing. In our Heavenly Crane Clan, there's a god-tier pill called the Ancestral Blood Pill. The pill can stimulate our bloodlines and strengthen them, or even achieve atavism and make our battle prowess multiply. The Ancestral Blood Pill is extremely important to our Heavenly Crane Clan, and one of the important materials to refining it can only be found in the Darkstar world. Without that, the effects of Ancestral Blood Pills refined will be greatly reduced. What material do you need to refine Ancestral Blood Pills? If I come across it in the future, I can collect some of it for you, Jian Chen asked. Soil of Divine Blood. He Qianqian replied. Jian Chen furrowed his brows and sank into his thoughts. During the few days he spent as the Fifth Hall Master, he had gained an understanding for some of the precious materials in the Darkstar world, but he had never heard of the Soil of Divine Blood. Soil of Divine Blood. Soil of Divine Blood. Since it's soil, it must have something to do with Earth. Don't tell me it's the ancestral sacred Earth within the Darkstar race? Jian Chen thought. He had read a few records before. In the distant past, the Grand Exalt of the Darkstar race and the Grand Exalt of the Wood Spirits had once shed blood during their battles. Their blood contaminated the soil, turning the regular Earth into something special. This soil was known as the ancestral sacred Earth within the Darkstar world. After a moment of silence, Jian Chen suddenly shifted his gaze towards the Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Lightning Clan. He asked, I have a question. How do you know that the items you've prepared will definitely satisfy the Fifth Divine Hall? If the Fifth Divine Hall is dissatisfied with your pill or heavenly resource, wouldn't this so-called suggestion of yours become a joke? And it's not like you've brought it in yet. As long as you haven't brought it into the Darkstar race, we still don't know whether you can actually bring it in here or not. As soon as Jian Chen finished talking, Ping Yixing of the Empire Lotus Sword Sect stood up and said, Brother Yang Yutian is completely right. You haven't even brought in the items yet, nor have you gained the Fifth Divine Hall's recognition, so it's a little early for you to be saying all this. Everyone, I'm going to save myself some time and take my leave first. I'll wait until the fifth divine hall has accepted your items before I continue with the discussions. As he said that, Ping Yixing made his way out. Hold on, I'll send people to contact the fifth divine hall right now, so please wait a moment, young Master Ping Yixing, said Lei Yun of the Heavenly Lightning Clan with complete confidence before immediately sending an envoy to the fifth divine hall. Many of the people present immediately changed slightly in expression from that. A prodigy asked in surprise, "Why were you in such a hurry to contact the fifth divine hall? Has your Heavenly Lightning Clan brought it in already?" Lei Yun only smiled. From how confident he seemed, he clearly confirmed the answer to that question with his silence. Ping Yixing, who had already arrived at the entrance of the divine hall, stopped. He turned around and gazed at Lei Yun deeply. "Your Heavenly Lightning Clan sure moves quickly. I never thought you could complete something that even we could not achieve and fulfill such a harsh request so quickly. The organization behind your Heavenly Lightning Clan must have played a part. Since your Heavenly Lightning Clan has already brought it in, I'll wait here for a moment then for the Vice Hall Master of the Fifth Divine Hall's arrival. I want to see whether the item your Heavenly Lightning Clan has brought in actually satisfies the Fifth Divine Hall's request or not." Jin Hong said leisurely in his seat, completely unworried. He acted as if he never cared about the business in the 100 Saint City in the first place. It was like he was just watching a show. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2791. The Glazed Fruit of Scarlet Blood. This Vice Hall Master is here. Ha ha ha, I only came to get an understanding of what was going on, to see whether your organizations outside could actually fulfill our fifth divine hall's request or not, but I never thought you would have already brought it in. The 100 Saint City really hasn't disappointed us." Just as the envoy from the Heavenly Lightning Clan was about to venture to the capital city of the Dark Star race to invite over the upper echelon of the fifth divine hall, clear laughter suddenly rang out from outside the Pantheon Divine Hall. It possessed immense power and great dignity, accompanied by the pressure that belonged to the primordial realm. Jian Chen recognized the voice instantly to be the weakest out of the three Vice Hall Masters of the Fifth Divine Hall, Bing Yuan. It was exactly because he was the weakest in the Fifth Divine Hall that he ran errands for various matters. He was basically tasked with all the miscellaneous matters in the Fifth Divine Hall that required someone important to handle. The eyes of the prodigies from the Heavenly Lightning Clan and the Jade Pill sect lit up. Lei Yun could not help but laugh aloud. "So it's our Vice Hall Master. We've failed to welcome you from afar, so please forgive us." Before Lei Yun had even finished talking, an extra person appeared in the Pantheon Divine Hall silently. He was a Vice Hall Master of the Fifth Divine Hall, Bing Yuan. Apart from Jian Chen, no one present sensed Bing Yuan's arrival, much less when he entered the Pantheon Divine Hall. When everyone discovered Bing Yuan's existence, they found him standing there at perfect ease, as if he had stood there for a very long time already. Bing Yuan ignored all the prodigies present. The moment he appeared in the Divine Hall, his gaze had been fixed on Lei Yun. He did not even look at the other people. It was as if the cultivators within the 100 Saint City were absolutely nothing in his eyes. If it were not for completing the mission his hallmaster had given him, he would not even want any contact with these cultivators. What our fifth divine hall requires are heavenly resources or pills that have reached God tier and can heal the soul. Has the item your Heavenly Lightning Clan brought in really fulfilled our request? Bing Yuan's gaze was locked on Lei Yun. He slowly released the pressure of the primordial realm, crushing down on Lei Yun like a mountain. Although it seemed like a reminder, it was actually a warning. It was for everyone to understand that it was fine if they could produce nothing, but if they were to produce something, it had to satisfy the fifth divine hall. After all, the fifth divine hall was not an existence that could be toyed with. All Lei Yun felt was a suffocating feeling. He was unable to breathe normally. His face immediately paled slightly. He was just an early god king, and he had broken through recently. Now that he had to endure the pressure of a primordial realm expert, he felt much more strained than anyone else. "Don't worry, Vice Hall Master. The item from our Heavenly Lightning Clan definitely won't disappoint you." Lei Yun used everything within him to speak with great difficulty. "Oh, then I'll have to wait and see. I hope you don't disappoint me." Bing Yuan slowly withdrew his pressure as his eyes shone with a sliver of eagerness. None of the prodigies in the Pantheon Divine Hall said anything. All of their gazes gathered on Lei Yun, flickering with various thoughts. For a moment, Lei Yun had become the point of focus. Under everyone's gazes, Lei Yun could not help but become slightly complacent. Afterwards, he patiently pulled out a jade box around a meter long from his space ring. The moment the jade box appeared, the senses of over 100 souls wrapped around it. As the jade box was not covered in any high-level formation that could block out the senses of the soul, they easily penetrated the box. However, when the owners of these senses detected what was in there, they were all slightly taken aback before becoming perplexed and confused. Bing Yuan had sent in the senses of his soul too. He had also sensed the item in the jade box clearly, and he was also taken aback at first. However, his face then sank. Just when he was about to erupt with fury, Lei Yun's voice rang out. "Please hold on, Vice Hall Master. What you see right now is incomplete. Please wait a moment, Vice Hall Master, and prepare to witness an unbelievable miracle." With that, Bing Yuan's eyes shone. His eyes were filled with doubt as he stood to one side and remained silent. Everyone in the Pantheon Divine Hall, including Jian Chen, became slightly curious, as they already knew that the heavenly resource in Lei Yun's jade box had not reached God tier. Instead, it had only reached the 9th grade of the truth tier. If they were outside, then they could nurture it further and evolve it to God tier. However, that would require an extremely lengthy amount of time, calculated in tens of millennia or even longer. However, they were in the Dark Star world right now. Even if they ignored the limiting environment of the Dark Star world, which made it unsuitable for growing heavenly resources of the Saints' world, could the 5th Divine Hall really wait that long for it to evolve? Don't tell me the Heavenly Lightning Clan has a way to make this 9th grade truth tier heavenly resource reach God tier in an extremely short amount of time? Jian Chen was filled with doubt too. As a primordial realm expert, he possessed vast knowledge, so he completely understood the difficulties of such a matter. In the Saints' world that was filled with experts, existences of great power and mastery could indeed complete some impossible feats if they were willing to pay the price. But this was the Dark Star world, a place affected by countless limitations. Matters that could be achieved in the Saints' world could not necessarily be achieved in the Dark Star world. At this moment, Lei Yun opened the jade box and took out a small tree that was less than a meter tall. There was only a single cherry-sized, red fruit on the tiny tree. It shone resplendently. It was almost crystalline, like a gemstone. The glazed fruit of scarlet blood. This is indeed a heavenly resource that can heal the soul. Though, I'm just very curious about how you'll elevate this 9th grade truth tier glazed fruit of scarlet blood to God tier, Lei Yun, said Ping Yixing of the Empire Lotus Sword Sect. Looking at its maturity, you'll probably need several dozen millennia at the very least if you want this glazed fruit of scarlet blood to evolve into a God tier heavenly resource, said the leader of the Heaven Sect. Lei Yun smiled mysteriously and did not answer them. Instead, he pulled out another wooden box from his space ring, placing it carefully on the table. He performed a great bow in pure respect and sincerity towards the wooden box before opening it, removing 3 white fist-sized pieces of jade from within. He placed the 3 pieces of jade around the glazed fruit of scarlet blood, before taking out some blood-red soil from his space ring. He scattered the soil onto the 3 pieces of jade. Soil of divine blood. The moment the blood-red soil appeared, a series of cries immediately rang out in the Pantheon Divine Hall. All of them looked at the soil of divine blood greedily. The Heavenly Crane Clan was not the only one that required the soil of divine blood. Many peak organizations in the Saints' world were in desperate need of it too, as all pills that were related to vitality and vital energies would undergo a qualitative transformation if the soil of divine blood were added to their refinement process. As a matter of fact, the soil of divine blood was a primary, crucial material to some legendary, God-tier pills of higher grades. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2792. Seeds of Time. However, although the soil of divine blood only appeared in the Dark Star world, it was clearly extremely scarce. Whenever it appeared, the peak organizations in the 100 Saint City would undergo a fierce bidding war, or they would reach an agreement with other organizations in the city to split the soil of divine blood. As a result, obtaining soil of divine blood became difficult. This was why a few prodigies almost began to drool the moment Lei Yun took out the soil of divine blood. However, most of them stared at the 3 pieces of jade. The jade seemed extremely ordinary no matter how they looked at it. There was nothing special about them at all. They did not even possess the slightest energy. However, Lei Yun had sprinkled something as precious as soil of divine blood over them, which made everyone curious. The Vice Hall Master of the Fifth Divine Hall, Bing Yuan, stared at the 3 pieces of jade too. Doubt appeared on his face, as he actually failed to see what the 3 pieces of jade were hiding with his cultivation as an infinite prime. Within the huge Pantheon Divine Hall, only Jian Chen sensed something. Not only had his soul surpassed the first heavenly layer infinite prime that Bing Yuan was, it had mutated, having ceased to be ordinary a long time ago. As a result, he could sense that the 3 pieces of white jade seemed to be hiding something. He furrowed his brows and thought hard. Only after a careful analysis did he gain an inkling. There seems to be 3 invisible seeds that no regular person can sense hiding within the jade. These seeds have something to do with the laws of time. They seem to be the seeds of the laws of time? When he reached this conclusion, even Jian Chen gasped despite his knowledge. He had no idea how laws could be transformed into a seed, nor did he know whether these seeds were formed naturally or had been condensed by someone through great power. However, its existence was a miracle in and of itself. Most importantly, these seeds of the laws of time did not possess any inherent energy, and the laws of time contained within had reached early God King at most. As a result, they could not be regarded as items of the God tier, which was why they could be brought in from the outside world without breaching the limit of the passageway. At this moment, the 3 pieces of white jade began to change. The soil of divine blood Lei Yun had sprinkled on them suddenly shone with a blood-red glow. Immediately, extremely pure vital energy seeped out. It was turbulent and tremendous. The pure vital energy was enough to force back the prodigies in the surroundings. Jian Chen's expression changed slightly. Perhaps due to his special soul, he could sense much more from the vital energy. That was an emotion filled with regret, resentment, fury, and blazing hatred. This made the vital energy seem like it had come alive, giving off its own emotions. However, Jian Chen knew that the emotions within the vital energy had been left behind by its past owner. However, the owner of the vital energy was just too powerful and just too terrifying, possessing the power to turn even the foul into the wondrous. Even though he was already dead, the blood was contaminated by his will from when he was still alive. Even after all this time, the will still had not dispersed. At this moment, a portion of the vital energy within the soil of divine blood actually merged with the 3 pieces of jade, sucked away one by one in the very end. Perhaps, it was better to say that the seeds within the jade were absorbing a mysterious power within the vital energy. This mysterious power seemed to be extremely beneficial to the seeds of time within the jade. After absorbing this power, the 3 seeds of time actually grew with startling speed. As they grew, the intense power of the laws of time began to pulse, unable to be concealed any longer. As for the vital energy that had seeped out from the soil of divine blood, they seemed to lose their backbone after the seeds of time had absorbed the mysterious power. They were unable to remain in their condensed state, so they vanished into thin air and merged with the world. Time passed silently. In 5 minutes, the vital energy from the soil of divine blood had completely dispersed. The soil of divine blood that the major organizations all coveted had been reduced to a clump of regular soil under everyone's gazes. As for the 3 seeds of time, they seemed to have received sufficient nourishment and completely began to grow. Slivers of the power of the laws of time they leaked out with accidentally seemed to influence the flow of time in the space around the jade, causing the area to become rather hazy. Bang! Suddenly, the 3 pieces of jade exploded with no prior signs at all. The 3 seeds of time hidden within the jade were no longer restricted anymore. All of the power of the laws of time erupted completely like horses freed from their reins, forming a temporal vortex a meter wide. The glazed fruit of scarlet blood, which had been placed to one side, was enveloped by the temporal vortex too. In the temporal vortex, time flowed at an extremely alarming rate. The glazed fruit of scarlet blood underwent changes at a speed visible to the naked eye. The fruit that was only the size of a cherry swelled up, becoming even redder and even more crystalline. The glazed fruit of scarlet blood was growing at an unbelievable rate. It was currently evolving towards the god tier. All the prodigies in the Pantheon Divine Hall were dumbfounded. Even Bing Yuan, a primordial realm expert, was dumbstruck by this sight. Although he was respected as a primordial realm expert, Bing Yuan's knowledge and insight probably could not even match the God Kings in the Pantheon Divine Hall. That was because the strongest expert Bing Yuan could come in contact with in the Darkstar world was the 9th heavenly layer Infinite Prime, the Darkstar Emperor. As for experts higher up, chaotic primes, they were just a legend within the Darkstar world. They could only learn a little bit about them from ancient records or the mouths of outsiders. As for the God Kings in the Pantheon Divine Hall, they had even seen Grand Primes, let alone Infinite Primes. Many of them could directly contact them too. As a result, the prodigies in the Pantheon Divine Hall obviously surpassed him in terms of knowledge and insight. However, even these prodigies who had witnessed plenty of miracles from great experts were stunned, let alone Bing Yuan. After all, he was basically no different from a country bumpkin, someone who had yet to see the world. Before long, the temporal vortex dispersed as the power of time ran out, and the glazed fruit of scarlet blood had experienced a mysterious amount of time in there. In short, when it reappeared before everyone, it already gave off a heavy fragrance. Just a single whiff of the fragrance could cleanse everyone's minds, as if their souls had been purified. In that moment, the glazed fruit of scarlet blood had truly evolved to the god tier. Looking at the glazed fruit of scarlet blood and sensing the pulse of energy it gave off that had truly reached god tier, the prodigy's eyes were close to falling out from how wide they had become. Their faces were filled with disbelief and inconceivability. I never thought god tier heavenly resources can be nurtured rapidly like this. This is truly a wonder, truly a wonder. Speeding up time will interfere with the laws, and heavenly resources don't just need time and energy to evolve to god tier. It isn't that simple. They have to undergo a baptism of the ways of the world too. As a result, nurturing god tier heavenly resources through speeding up time has already been disproven by many peak experts in the saints' world, as it's just impossible. I have to say, it's a miracle that this glazed fruit of scarlet blood could succeed with it. The reason why the glazed fruit of scarlet blood could succeed is definitely not just because of the laws of time. The soil of divine blood must be the actual component vital to it all. For a moment, discussions rose up everywhere in the Pantheon Divine Hall. Many people's eyes lit up. At that moment, they all thought the same thing. If the soil of divine blood really was capable of something like this, did it not mean they could nurture large quantities of god-tier heavenly resources as long as they possess sufficient soil of divine blood? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2793. New Hope. Perhaps because he could tell what everyone was thinking, Lei Yun could not help but sneer. He said in a rather mocking manner, "I'd advise you to give up on it, as today has probably been the first time this method has been used to nurture a god-tier heavenly resource. A method as inconceivable as this is completely irreplicable. And even if supreme experts skilled with the laws of time manage to replicate it, the cost will completely outweigh the benefits, as the value of soil of divine blood is probably enough to rival dozens or even more heavenly resources like these. Moreover, the soil of divine blood is something precious that has absolutely no supply in the saints' world. Why don't you ask yourselves this? Just which organization would be willing to use soil of divine blood that's worth several dozen god-tier heavenly resources to nurture a single god-tier heavenly resource when the losses clearly outweigh the gains?" Hearing Lei Yun's explanation, most of the light in the eyes of the prodigies there immediately subsided. They understood the value and worth of soil of divine blood extremely well. This was an important material for refining high-level god-tier pills. If soil of divine blood was included for some high-level pills, not only would their quality increase, but they would even become several times more potent. Its value had completely exceeded several dozen god-tier heavenly resources. Using something so precious to nurture a single god-tier heavenly resource was truly a bad deal. They would only use something as precious as soil of divine blood on a heavenly resource that was only at the truth tier regardless of the costs with the predicament they currently faced in the Darkstar world. Although this is a completely unworthwhile method of nurturing heavenly resources, it's the only way to fulfill the fifth Divine Hall's request in the Darkstar world. Many people thought. They immediately began to record the entire metamorphosis process of the glazed fruit of scarlet blood evolving to god tier, planning to contact their clans outside and have them come up with ideas. Lei Yun could obviously tell what they were thinking. However, he was unfazed. He did not worry at all that his method of nurturing the glazed fruit of scarlet blood would be replicated. If it were the Saints' world, a few peak organizations could achieve this easily. However, there were many limitations in the Darkstar world. Only their Heavenly Lightning clan could achieve something like this. Or more accurately, it was the organization behind their Heavenly Lightning clan. With a wave of his hand, The glazed fruit of scarlet blood that had just evolved flew into Lei Yun's hand. He held it in a single hand carelessly as undisguised pride and arrogance filled his face. Afterwards, he smiled at Bing Yuan. Esteemed Vice Hallmaster, may I ask if this god-tier glazed fruit of scarlet blood satisfies the fifth divine hall? Bing Yuan took in a deep breath. Having personally witnessed the evolution of the glazed fruit of scarlet blood, he felt like he had witnessed a miracle. However, he also understood that such an unbelievable method would only appear in the saints' world that was filled with experts. As for his Dark Star race, he did not even know if there was a chance for them to break out of the cage in his lifetime. Correct. It has indeed reached God tier, and it's a heavenly resource that can heal the soul. However, as for whether we're actually satisfied or not, we'll still require our Hallmaster to personally appraise it, Bing Yuan said. If that's the case, then Lei Yun will hand this glazed fruit of scarlet blood to Vice Hallmaster Bing Yuan. I hope the Vice Hallmaster can pass this item on to your esteemed Hallmaster for appraisal. Lei Yun was riding on the crest of success. As he passed the glazed fruit of scarlet blood to Bing Yuan, he continued, only our Heavenly Lightning Clan can nurture a god-tier heavenly resource like this throughout the entire Saints world. In order to provide a god-tier heavenly resource to the Fifth Divine Hall, our clan has gone to extremely great lengths, as the value of those 3 pieces of jade that contain the laws of time are completely beyond imagination. I've taken note of its value. You don't have to worry. Before our Hallmaster appraises the glazed fruit of scarlet blood, our Fifth Divine Hall will continue to protect you until our Hallmaster orders us to stop, Bing Yuan said sternly. The Hallmaster of the Fifth Divine Hall had yet to return, so even when he accepted the god-tier heavenly resource from the Heavenly Lightning Clan, he was afraid to make the decision himself. After all, he had no idea whether the god-tier heavenly resource was effective on their Hallmaster's soul at all. Our Jade Pill sect will definitely refine a pill that satisfies the Fifth Divine Hall. However, the pill is still being refined right now, and it'll probably only be delivered later. The moment it arrives, our Jade Pill sect will immediately contact the Vice Hallmaster. At this moment, the person from the Jade Pill sect spoke too, also brimming with confidence. He already knew that the ancestors of the Jade Pill sect were personally refining the pill. Since even their ancestors had emerged, failure would be completely impossible. Good. Bing Yuan was delighted and nodded constantly. He had already been surprised over how he obtained a god-tier glazed fruit of scarlet blood. If he could obtain a god-tier pill too, it would definitely be extremely beneficial to the recovery of his Hallmaster's soul. Vice Hallmaster, you've seen it already. Only the Heavenly Lightning Clan and the Jade Pill sect can produce god-tier heavenly resources and god-tier pills. As for us who can't produce what you require, we will definitely be chased out of the Dark Star world by the Seventh Divine Hall once we lose your protection. I hope the Vice Hallmaster can speak for us before the Hallmaster and give us an opportunity to remain in the Dark Star world. We're willing to make it up to the Fifth Divine Hall through other means. At this moment, He Chanqian suddenly stood up. With a pleading gaze, she lowered her head slightly and clasped her fist at Bing Yuan, asking him submissively. At that moment, she seemed to have forgotten she represented the Heavenly Crane clan. She was willing to lower her noble head before an infinite prime that only seemed like a slightly larger ant in the eyes of the Heavenly Crane clan, just in hopes of being able to remain here. This was because the resources from the Dark Star world had just too great of an impact on the Heavenly Crane clan. Once they lost their foundation here, the entire clan's strength would plummet. Standing behind her, Jian Chen's emotions immediately became rather mixed when he saw how close He Chanqian was to bowing and scraping. In the end, all he could do was sigh inside. He said nothing at all. This was because he had been in contact with Bing Yuan. Even with his flawless disguise, he did not want to attract too much of Bing Yuan's attention. As a result, Jian Chen had only become even more discreet after Bing Yuan entered the Pantheon Divine Hall. Miss Chen is correct. We may not be able to produce god-tier heavenly resources and pills, but we can do a few things for the Fifth Divine Hall in other aspects, such as hunting down some life-devouring beasts. I'm aware that there are many Saints World organizations that work for the Fifth Divine Hall in the Dark Star world, but in terms of strength, these organizations don't even have the right to lick our boots. I've heard that the Dark Star race is purchasing the remains of life-devouring beasts en masse lately, even offering a price several times greater than normal and placing great rewards for God King life-devouring beasts. If you were to ask who possesses the greatest ability to kill God King life-devouring beasts within the Dark Star world race right now, It would definitely be our 100 Saint City if we ignore that Xueqi who made a mess in Dark Knight City before going missing. After what He Chanqian said, a few prodigies immediately spoke up too. They thought of the same thing as He Chanqian. They were reluctant to yield to the Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Lightning Clan, yet they refused to give up on the abundant resources in the Dark Star world. As a result, all they could do was take a step back and find another method, just so they could obtain the Fifth Divine Hall's protection. Listening to these people, Bing Yuan began to hesitate. The day of the great ceremony was growing closer and closer. The ceremony required large numbers of life-devouring beasts. High-level life-devouring beasts like those at God King were crucial, but their race only received a pitiful number of their corpses, just a handful. Instead, they had purchased a huge pile of low-level life-devouring beast corpses. The situation right now really was like what these people described it to be. The outsiders who worked for the various divine halls were much weaker than the 100 Saint City. They were more than enough for hunting down over-God life-devouring beasts, but obtaining God King life-devouring beasts was extremely difficult. If they could get the people of the 100 Saint City to hunt down God King life-devouring beasts, it would be quite a good idea. Thinking up to there, Bing Yuan seemed to make up his mind. Determination appeared in his eyes as he said, "Since you're pleading with me, then our divine hall will give you a chance. If you can provide large quantities of God King life-devouring beast corpses to our fifth divine hall, I can ask our hall master to show some mercy to you. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible." Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2794. Hunting Operation. With that, all the organizations that were unable to produce God-tier pills or heavenly resources beamed with joy. In that moment, they felt like the moment before they drowned. They had suddenly grabbed a straw, giving them the hope of surviving. This obviously touched their hearts. Hunting God King life-devouring beasts was a test of life and death riddled with difficulties from the perspective of other outsiders. Just the slightest carelessness could annihilate their entire group. However, this was not completely impossible to the organizations in the 100 Saint City. This was because they all had experience moving around in the Two World Mountains, making frequent contact with life-devouring beasts. They had truly accumulated quite a lot of valuable experience. Combined with the numerous sacrificial god kings under their command, hunting life-devouring beasts was not impossible as long as they made sufficient arrangements. It would even be easier than when they moved through the Two World Mountains. That was because they were in a completely reactive position as they moved through the Two World Mountains. Every single battle had occurred extremely hastily, with no path for retreat either. But now, they would be proactive with the Dark Star world behind them. They could be on the offense and on the defense. Moreover, they had time to set up a series of arrangements, so hunting would obviously become much easier. Compared to their exhilaration, the people from the Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Lightning Clan's faces became as warped as possible. They had already reached an agreement in the past, planning to use this opportunity to rearrange the standings of the organizations in the 100 Saint City so that they could maximize their benefits. In the end, just a single sentence from Bing Yuan had shattered their wonderful dream. As the two organizations were filled with regret, they also began to resent Bing Yuan slightly. God damn it, why would it be like this? Our Heavenly Lightning Clan has gone to such great lengths to nurture a glazed fruit of scarlet blood to satisfy the Fifth Divine Hall, yet these people actually just need to do something as simple as kill a few God King life-devouring beasts, and they'll get a chance to be protected by the Fifth Divine Hall? This is unfair. This is unfair. Lei Yun fumed inside, but he was just unable to show it. This was the territory of the Dark Star race after all. No matter how powerful the Heavenly Lightning Clan was, they were unable to lecture people in the Dark Star world. Vice Hallmaster, God King life-devouring beasts may be worth a lot, but you still can't compare it to the God-tier pill and heavenly resource provided by our Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Lightning Clan. Their values are on completely different levels. If other organizations just need to provide some corpses of God King life-devouring beasts, and they'll be able to enjoy the same treatment as our Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Lightning Clan, that'll be far too unfair. The prodigy from the Jade Pill sect stood up and grumbled. In order to produce the pill that the Fifth Divine Hall required, the ancestors of their Jade Pill sect had even emerged from secluded cultivation, personally creating the pill formula. They were going to much greater lengths than just killing a few God King life-devouring beasts. You don't have to worry at all. Your Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Lightning Clan have provided our Hall Master with what he needs, so the majority of the merit obviously goes to you. If our Hall Master is satisfied with your pill and heavenly resource, our 5th Divine Hall will reward you depending on your merit. By then, you'll have plenty of benefits. As for them, Bing Yuan looked around and said indifferently, I only said I'd only ask the Hall Master to show some mercy to them if they provide us with God King life-devouring beasts. I can't guarantee whether the Hall Master actually recognizes them or not in the end. The people of the Heavenly Lightning Clan and the Jade Pill sect eased up slightly with that, while the other organizations in the Pantheon Divine Hall became rather uneasy after their excitement. They were afraid of spending all their efforts hunting down God King life-devouring beasts, only for it to go to waste. However, they also understood that if they hunted down life-devouring beasts and handed them over to the 5th Divine Hall like what Bing Yuan had said, there was a chance that they could obtain the 5th Divine Hall's protection at the very least. Otherwise, they would not have any chance at all, and the end result would be either yielding to the Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Lightning Clan or abandoning their business here. Vice Hall Master Bing Yuan did not remain in the 100 Saint City for very long. He returned to the 5th Divine Hall very quickly with a glazed fruit of scarlet blood that had evolved to God tier. With his departure, the many organizations gathered in the Pantheon Divine Hall obviously dispersed, returning to their own territories and immediately doing two things. The first thing was to record down the glazed fruit of Scarlet Blood's process of evolving to God tier in detail before immediately sending people to deliver the information back to their clans in the Saints' world. The second thing was to gather numerous sacrificial God Kings in their divine halls. 300 or 400 sacrificial God Kings had already been gathered in the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall. They stood in a neat rectangle in front of Xueqi, showing great respect. The Heavenly Crane clan had brought in almost 1,000 sacrificial God Kings. A few fell in battle as they crossed through the two world mountains, with around 700 or 800 people remaining. Currently, the sacrificial God Kings gathered in the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall already amounted to half of the remaining number. Xueqi sat on the throne sternly, radiating with coldness, which made the entire hall seem like a cavern of ice. It was extremely cold. She glanced past the sacrificial God Kings below sharply before landing on the white-clothed Jian Chen, who stood indifferently. She spoke with a voice that she believed to be very authoritative. Yang Yutian, you're a member of our Heavenly Crane clan when you're in the Dark Star world, so any business of our Heavenly Crane clan is also your business. Protecting the interests of the Heavenly Crane clan is also part of your responsibility. The Heavenly Crane clan needs you now, so will you fight for the Heavenly Crane clan? Jian Chen smiled and clasped his fist. That would obviously be an unavoidable duty of mine. The clan requires you to venture to the two world mountains and hunt down God King life-devouring beasts. I'll dispatch half of the sacrificial God Kings from the clan to you. They will listen to your command. I hope you don't disappoint us, said Xueqi. It's just that, Miss Chen, I've only emerged from the two world mountains recently. Why do you have to send me back in so hurriedly and so soon? Jian Chen smiled bitterly. Xueqi was helpless. We've already reached a critical moment that determines whether our Heavenly Crane clan can remain in the Dark Star world or not. And in the clan, you happen to be the strongest, so I have no other choice. But you don't have to worry. When I leave here, I will definitely personally report the sacrifices you have made for your clan to the clan so that you earn a greater reward. Fine then. I'll hunt down these God King life-devouring beasts, but I won't be needing these sacrificial God Kings. The strength they can offer is unnecessary to me, and I've grasped the laws of space, so it's actually much easier for me to move around alone. It'll actually be inconvenient if I have them around, said Jian Chen. Xueqi nodded. If that's the case, I won't allocate these people to you. However, you must be careful when you move around alone. The threats you face definitely aren't as simple as just the life-devouring beasts of the two world mountains. You have to be careful about the Dark Star race too. If the Dark Star race learns of your strength and talent, they definitely won't spare you according to how they've behaved in the past. And you need to be a little more cautious about Chu Jia, Zhou Ji, Zhao Wenbin, Kong Feiying, and Gong Rui's. Due to the situation in the Dark Star world, none of the people in charge of the organizations can leave the city without proper reason, so we can't partake in the hunting operation. However, I'm afraid that they'll send sacrificial God Kings to deal with you, so you must remain vigilant, Xueqi reminded him sincerely, revealing her concern for him. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2795. Space and Time. Jian Chen smiled mysteriously and said without minding at all, "If I were that easy to kill, I would have died in the depths of the Two-World Mountains a long time ago. Why would I still be alive right now? You don't have to worry, Miss Chen. I don't even have to take Chu Tian and the others seriously." He Qianqian shot an exasperated glance at Jian Chen. "I know you're very strong. I'm just warning you, so you'll be prepared, just in case you get caught off guard." Afterwards, He Qianqian warned Jian Chen about a few things seriously and in great detail, regardless of whether Jian Chen knew about it already or not. In short, she explained everything she knew about the Two-World Mountains and everything that required Jian Chen to be careful of patiently to him. She supplemented all aspects of Jian Chen's knowledge regarding the Two-World Mountains. Jian Chen was a powerful primordial realm expert, enough to move around freely in the Two-World Mountains, and he possessed an extremely deep understanding of the Two-World Mountains already, but he still benefited greatly from what He Qianqian told him. He learned about many secrets he had yet to uncover. After all, the 100 Saint City had already operated in the Dark Star world for countless years. They had entered the Two-World Mountains even more than the Dark Star race, so their understanding of the Two-World Mountains even surpassed the Dark Star race in certain aspects. Jian Chen left the 100 Saint City alone. He did not disguise himself at all, just swaggering his way over to the Two-World Mountains. As for the several hundred sacrificial god kings gathered in the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall, He Qianqian split them up into multiple groups and sent them into the depths of the Two-World Mountains. She could not rely on Jian Chen alone to hunt down life-devouring beasts, as she knew that just a single corpse or two would never be enough. Only when they gathered a lot, so much that the Fifth Divine Hall was unable to ignore them, could they earn the Fifth Divine Hall's promise of protection. As a result, in order to hunt down as many God King life-devouring beasts as possible, she needed to send as large of a force as she could muster into the Two-World Mountains. He Qianqian was not the only one who took action in the 100 Saint City. Many peak organizations sent out many sacrificial god kings too. Even Jin Hong was not an exception. Although Jin Hong had already received the ancestors' notice, giving him permission to abandon their operations in the Dark Star race at any time, that would be a decision he would make when there was no hope at all. Now that a ray of hope had appeared, he obviously had to grasp it. Jin Hong currently stood in the doorway of the Divine Hall that belonged to the Dire Wolf clan. His gaze was fixed on the city gates. He could not help but frown. He Qianqian has actually still chosen to send Yang Yutian into the Two-World Mountains. Doesn't Yang Yutian know that those who resent him have been keeping an eye on him the entire time? He didn't even try to disguise himself when he left the city. "Guards!" Jin Hong suddenly called out. "Young master." 2 overgods of the wolf clan immediately appeared, but from their attires, they seemed more like caretakers than guards. "Send people to keep an eye on the Chu family, Gong family, Zhao family, Songqiong clan, and Yuqiong sect immediately. Contact me the moment they make any movements," Jin Hong said. "Yes, young master." At the same time, many sacrificial god kings gathered in the divine halls that belonged to the Chu family, Gong family, Zhao family, Songqiong clan, and the Yuqiong sect. Chu Jie, Gong Rui's, Zhao Wenbin, Kong Feiying, and Zhou Ji all sat high up, making a series of arrangements. A while later, the 5 of them put on their disguises, blending in as members of the sacrificial god kings. Not only had their appearances changed, but even their presences changed through the use of a few special items. Although their method of disguise seemed rather rough, such that they could easily give themselves away at a close range, it could fool the senses of souls to a certain degree. After disguising themselves as sacrificial god kings, the sacrificial god kings they replaced underwent the same procedure to replace them. "Remember, before I return, you are forbidden from taking a single step out of the hall, nor can you activate the formation in the hall. Even if you speak, you have to copy my voice, understood?" After exchanging identities, the 5 of them sternly instructed the sacrificial god kings replacing them. "Yes, young master." The sacrificial god kings all answered. Afterwards, Chu Jie, Gong Rui's, Kong Feiying, Zhao Wenbin, and Zhou Ji all blended into the sacrificial god kings, setting off from their respective divine halls and flying towards the city gates. The moment the 5 of them set off, the senses of Jin Hong and He Qianqian's souls swept over, completely enveloping these sacrificial god kings. After circling around for a short while, they failed to discover anything wrong, so they both withdrew the senses of their souls. Although the leaders of the various organizations in the 100 Saint City had all reached an agreement to remain within the city due to the situation of the Dark Star world, to prevent the people of the 7th Divine Hall from scheming against them in the wilderness, He Chanqian and Jin Hong were clearly worried that they would still make a reckless move. As such, they constantly paid attention to the movements of the five. The Chu family, Gong family, Zhao family, Congqiong clan, and Yuqiong sect have all sent out part of their sacrificial god kings. It completely matches the strength required to hunt down life-devouring beasts. However, even if these sacrificial soldiers want to do something to Yang Yutian, they shouldn't be able to match his speed. Yang Yutian, all I can do right now is keep an eye on Chu Tian, Zhou Ji, Zhao Wenbin, Gong, Ruiz and Kong Feiying for you. As long as the five of them aren't present, the sacrificial god kings won't be able to fall into formation, and without the primordial realm formation, they shouldn't be able to threaten you. He Chanqian stood on the top of the heavenly crane divine hall in white clothes and muttered to herself as she stared in the direction of the city gates. Young master, we've just received news that Chu Tian, Gong Ruiz, and the others are all in their divine halls. On another side of the city, Jin Hong received the report of their investigations, and he immediately eased up a lot. After waving his hand and dismissing the servant, he crossed his legs and sat on the throne, sinking into his thoughts. He could not help but think of the sight when he could barely suppress the power of his bloodline whenever he approached Yang Yutian again, as well as the emotions of extreme craving it pulsed with. Just what does Yang Yutian possess? I may be mistaken, but the reason for the rousing of my bloodline is not because of some item, but because his bloodline is also unique, sharing the same origins as our dire wolf clan. Should I find an opportunity to ask him once he returns? Jin Hong thought to himself. He had ruminated over this for just too long, but he had his qualms. He was afraid of affecting his relationship with Yang Yutian, which was why he had never mentioned it. Outside the 100 Saint City, Jian Chen flew at an altitude of 1,000 meters as he made his way towards the two world mountains at a steady pace. However, he did not travel along a straight path. Instead, he detoured slightly to one side, avoiding the shortest path that constantly flowed with people. However, the corner of his mouth seemed to remain curled the entire time. Sometimes, a sneering light would flash through his eyes. At this moment, the space around Jian Chen suddenly blurred. At the same time, the flow of time in the blurry space underwent an upheaving change. The flow of time actually sped up by several dozen times in that instant. Moreover, Jian Chen could clearly sense that the space he resided in seemed to be forcefully changed into a miniature world that differed from the Dark Star world. Not only did the space become independent, but the space also possessed its own laws of time. Is this the laws of space and the laws of time? I never thought I'd run into a prodigy who's grasped both space and time in the Dark Star world. Even in the Saints' world, people like that are like mythical existences. Jian Chen stopped and hovered in the air with his arms crossed, making a small remark to himself at complete ease. At the same time, he closely sensed the changes in the space with a hint of interest. More accurately, he was sensing the laws of time that filled the surroundings and altered the flow of time. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2796. Falling into an encirclement, there were many people who had comprehended the laws of space in the Saints' world and plenty who had comprehended the laws of time. However, basically all of these people only grasped one of the laws. There were extremely few cultivators in the Saints' world who had comprehended both the laws of time and the laws of space. Describing them as mythical existences was no exaggeration at all. This was because a slight connection existed between the laws of space and the laws of time to a certain degree. Once both laws were grasped, the difficulty of comprehension would multiply, sometimes by as much as several dozen-fold or hundred-fold. Yet now, Jian Chen had run into a cultivator who had grasped both the laws of time and the laws of space, and his cultivation had reached an impressive God-King realm. If this were a cultivator of the Dark Star race, then Jian Chen would not have been so surprised, as cultivators of the Dark Star race had plenty of time to slowly comprehend. However, what mattered was the person who had comprehended both the laws of space and the laws of time was an outsider. What did this mean? This meant he was less than 1,000 years old, or he never would have been able to set foot in the Dark Star world. In a single millennium, he had elevated his comprehension of both the laws of time and the laws of space to God King. The difficulty of that was unparalleled to comprehending other laws. His talent could truly be regarded as unprecedented. He's already an early God King, yet the space he's created is so tough that even mid-God Kings will struggle to destroy it. A combination of the laws of space and laws of time really is powerful. Jian Chen sighed in admiration. According to his observations, the space was already enough to trap most late God Kings. This was simply unimaginable. You possess impressive insight, sir. I never thought you'd already see through the toughness of my world of heaven and earth before I've even done anything. However, you've still underestimated my world of heaven and earth. More correctly, even late God Kings will struggle to destroy my world of heaven and earth. As for mid-God Kings, no one can get through it unless they're prodigies that possess the talent of supreme God Kings and can challenge those at higher cultivation levels. A peaceful voice rang out. A young man in white robes appeared out of nowhere 100 meters in front of Jian Chen. He did not seem old, only around 18 or 19. He had fine facial features, and he seemed like he was still wet behind his ears at first glance. He gave off a peaceful presence, enough to bring peace to the surroundings, which made his presence merge perfectly with the world around him. It was as if even his body was a part of the surroundings. He had truly attained, becoming one with nature. The world of heaven and earth. You call this domain the world of heaven and earth? Jian Chen asked. However, he did understand that calling this domain composed of the laws of space and the laws of time a world made perfect sense, as the space had already become completely independent, just like a real miniature world. The flow of time here had completely separated from the dark star world. That's right. To me, time is heaven and space is earth. A combination of time and space creates a world, so this world of mine is called the world of heaven and earth, the young man said with composure. He stood with his arms crossed, also levitating at an altitude of 1,000 meters. He did not take any action. Did the Chu family, Gong family, Zhao family, Cangqiong clan, and Yuqiong sect send you to deal with me? Are you really that confident you can keep me trapped in your world of heaven and earth? Jian Chen stared at the young man, and his gaze gradually sharpened. The young man did not deny that. He nodded gently. Young Yutian, I've already heard you possess extraordinary battle prowess, enough to rival the young master of the Dire Wolf clan who's obtained a grand exalt's legacy. While my world of heaven and earth won't be able to keep you trapped for long periods of time, keeping you trapped for a while won't be a problem. There normally aren't any good consequences awaiting those who oppose me. Have you ever considered the consequences of opposing me? Even in the saints' world, you're a supreme prodigy to be able to comprehend both the laws of time and the laws of space to God King at such a young age. If you just die, that's far too great of a pity. If you leave right now, I'll turn a blind eye to everything you've done, Jian Chen said coldly. Apologies. I'm just acting on someone's request. Since I've already agreed to it, I must uphold my word. When he reached there, the young man smiled mysteriously. He stared at Jian Chen like he was looking at a dead man and said, Moreover, even if you can defeat me, you won't get the chance, as if nothing goes wrong today, you shouldn't be able to leave. World of heaven and earth. Open. The young man suddenly spread his arms. All of his limbs sprawled out. The laws of time and the laws of space revolved around him, merging together and disturbing the space around him, such that the region that he resided in became a new miniature world. The miniature world suddenly expanded outwards with his cry, forcefully increasing its area by several-fold in that instant. As the miniature world expanded and absorbed even more space, the people who were originally on the edge of the original miniature world were naturally enveloped too. These people were split into 5 groups, amounting to almost 4,000 people. Every single one of them radiated with the aura of God Kings. The 5 groups of people were the sacrificial God Kings of the Chu family, Gong family, Zhao family, Cangqiong clan, and Yuqiong sect, while the people leading them were Chu Tian, Zhao Wenbin, Gong Rui's, Kong Feiying, and Zhou Ji. As soon as they saw Jian Chen, their eyes became flooded with hatred. In particular with Chu Tian, not only did his eyes explode with killing intent, but his hatred was so extreme that it twisted his face. It made him seem especially vicious. Ha 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 ha. Yang Yutian, we've finally gotten the chance to catch you. Weren't you pretty arrogant back then in the Two World Mountains? Why were you all scared now? Do you feel afraid inside? Chu Tian stood among the sacrificial God Kings and laughed in delight, as if he had finally obtained the opportunity to redeem himself for the humiliation in the past. Yang Yutian, Never did you think you would face something like this, did you? Only a single fate awaits those who offend us, which is death. Yang Yutian, weren't you pretty impressive back then in the Two World Mountains? I'd like to see just how many attacks you can last before our formations. Today you're done for. No one can save you. Gong Rui's, Kong Feiying, Zhou and Zhao Wenbin all sneered too. They all looked at Jian Chen with surging grievance, as well as extremely, extremely deep hatred. This hatred, this grievance, all originated from the humiliation they had originally suffered. They had been humiliated in the eye of the public. Back then in the Two World Mountains, the 5 of them had lost many sacrificial god kings. Even they themselves had almost died at Yang Yutian's hands. Now, the 5 of them were teeming with confidence, as if victory was already within their grasp. They did not take Yang Yutian seriously at all, as they had already fallen into formation beforehand. Right now, their power and the power of the many sacrificial god kings merged together through the formation. They were all god kings, but they possessed the battle prowess of the primordial realm. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2797. The Scion of 5. The young man who grasped the space and time glanced at the 5 of them indifferently. Even though the 5 of them already possessed the battle prowess of the primordial realm through the formations, the young man was not fearful of them at all. Instead, he showed faint disdain, as if he looked down on them slightly. I've completed your request. Don't forget about your promise, the young man said nonchalantly. Scion of 5. You don't need to worry at all. We will definitely uphold what we've promised to your 5 sect. Kong Feiying laughed aloud. That would be for the best. The young man known as the Scion of 5 nodded in satisfaction, about to withdraw his world of heaven and earth. Once Chu Tian and the others began fighting and erupted with the power of the primordial realm, his world of heaven and earth would be as flimsy as paper, even though it could temporarily stop late god kings. However, when Jian Chen heard the 5 sect, his eyes flashed. He turned towards the Scion of 5 in surprise and asked, Are you from the 5 sect of the Star Brilliance plane? Gong Rui's seemed to think of something from that. Suddenly, he laughed aloud. Ha ha ha, that's right, the Scion of 5 comes from the 5 sect, one of the 10 great organizations on the Star Brilliance plane. Moreover, his status in the 5 sect is extraordinary. He's the chosen scion of the entire sect. His status only pales in comparison to the sect masters. Yang Yutian, don't tell me you're trying to claim you have some connection to the 5 sect at a time like this? The Scion of 5 said nothing. He hovered in the air and stared at Jian Chen calmly. Jian Chen came to a realization. He ignored Gong Rui's and said to the Scion of 5 No wonder you could comprehend both the laws of space and the laws of time to God King at such a young age. So you actually come from the 5 sect. The Point Cloud Venerable of the 5 sect is one of the few experts of this day and age who has comprehended both the laws of space and the laws of time to Grand Prime. It's rumored that he received the guidance of the space-time elder in the past, giving him extremely great mastery over the way of space and the way of time. The Scion of 5 changed slightly in expression. You actually know my master received guidance from the space-time elder in the past? That's not something an independent cultivator should know. Let alone independent cultivators. Even the descendants of peak organizations won't be able to come into contact with that information unless they've achieved sufficient status. Just who are you? Your master? The Point Cloud Venerable is actually your master? Now that's surprising. Jian Chen was rather taken aback. He could not help but study the Scion of 5 properly. The Point Cloud Venerable has helped me out in the past, even though I could tell he had other intentions in mind when he assisted me. Though I must admit, the assistance he lended me back then was of extremely great use. Since you're the Point Cloud Venerable's disciple, I'll spare you today for the Point Cloud Venerable's sake. However, you may have escaped death, but not punishment. With that, Jian Chen directly struck. In that instant, he became surrounded by powerful sword qi in the form of dazzling, scorching white light. Afterwards, it turned into a huge strand of sword qi that stabbed towards the Scion of 5. The strand of sword qi was completely condensed from the laws of the sword. Even though it was just at the level of mid-god kings, the sword intent it contained was powerful enough to influence the Scion of 5's world of heaven and earth. Under the powerful sword intent, the world of heaven and earth trembled violently. The space twisted viciously as the flow of time was forcefully interrupted. The scion of 5 Point changed in expression. He immediately pointed at the space before him and said gently, "Worlds differ. Inches away, but worlds apart." As he pointed out, the entire world of heaven and earth underwent a drastic change. This independent and incompletely miniature world seemed to split in two in that instant, separating Jian Chen and him into two completely different regions of space and time. The result was they seemed less than 100 meters apart, but in reality, the space between them was under influence, elongating the distance between them such that it became hundreds of kilometers, thousands of kilometers, tens of thousand kilometers, or even longer. The time it would actually take to cross through this region would be incalculable. That was because not only did this touch on space, but there was interference from time too. The combination and supplementary effect between the laws of space and the laws of time truly is profound. It's just a pity that your cultivation is too low. You can't restrain me. Jian Chen's voice rang out. The sword qi under his control suddenly exploded with light, as if it could destroy space and cut through time. It tore through all the restraints of the world of heaven and earth like it was unstoppable, reaching the scion of 5 Point instantly. In that instant, the scion of 5 Point was unable to maintain the same composure as before. His face changed drastically, overcome by shock. The power of space around him surged violently, as if he was trying to forcefully alter the space around him so that he could avoid the sword qi. However, the sword qi's power had completely surpassed the laws of space he had grasped. Even the power created from a combination of the laws of space and the laws of time was unable to influence Jian Chen's sword qi at all. Boom! With that, Jian Chen's sword qi slammed against the scion of 5 Point mercilessly. It did not penetrate the scion of 5 Point like something sharp. Instead, the sword qi automatically exploded when it approached the scion of 5 Point under Jian Chen's precise control. In the end, it turned into a ball of energy and light that contained the same sharpness of the sword qi and sent the scion of 5 Point flying viciously. At the same time, the scion of 5 Point's world of heaven and earth completely crumbled and collapsed. The scion of 5 Point had been blasted far away with a pale face. The luxurious robes on him had already been reduced to dust, revealing a set of tight-fitting armor. The armor was a supreme quality saint artifact, but it had already dimmed now, covered in tiny cracks. "Why? You actually defeated me in a single attack. That's impossible. That's completely impossible." 1,000 meters away, the scion of 5 Point rose up in the air in a horrible shape. His face was filled with disbelief, as if he was unable to accept this. He had learnt about Yang Yuqian's various feats in the Two World Mountains before all of this, and he had gained a rough idea of Yang Yuqian's strength too. He was confident that with his combination of the laws of space and the laws of time, even defeating Yang Yuqian was not impossible, let alone trapping him. However, never did he think that reality would be so cruel and so difficult to accept. He could not even withstand a single blow from Yang Yuqian. If it were not for the fact that the attack did not contain killing intent, he would probably be dead, or close to death. To the other side, Chu Jie, Zhou Ji, Gong Rui's, Kong Feiying, and Zhao Wenbin were shocked by how Jian Chen had defeated the scion of 5 Point in a single attack. The battle prowess that Yang Yuqian demonstrated right now seemed to be even greater than what he possessed in the Two World Mountains. However, they had already fallen into formation, already possessing the power to contend with the primordial realm. As a result, even though Yang Yuqian's performance had taken them by surprise, they did not show any fear at all. At the same time, Jin Hong sat on his throne with his eyes shut, resting in the divine hall of the Dire Wolf clan in the 100 Saint City. He was not cultivating, but constantly keeping an eye on the movements of the divine halls that belonged to the Chu family, Zhou family, Gong family, Cangqiong clan, and Yuqiong sect. He was watching over Yang Yuqian in the 100 Saint City so that he could prevent Chu Jie and the other leading figures from secretly slipping out and using the primordial realm formations against Yang Yuqian. However, just as the scion of 5 Point's world of heaven and earth was destroyed, Jian Chen's surging sword qi was freed from the restraints of the world of heaven and earth and leaked into the Dark Star world. Jin Hong seemed to sense it in his divine hall, and his eyes suddenly snapped open, immediately shining brilliantly. With a sway, he appeared on top of the divine hall instantly, directly throwing a punch at the Chu family's divine hall from afar. Boom! Jin Hong immediately left a 10-meter deep dent in the Chu family's formation. Afterwards, the senses of Jin Hong's soul flooded in through there. Within the divine hall, he discovered the sacrificial god king disguised as Xueqi. Both his presence and appearance was exactly like Xueqi's, but he was still a sacrificial soldier after all, let alone one that had consumed 100 tribulations god king pill and only had the lifespan of a century. As a result, under Jin Hong's close inspection, the sacrificial god king who posed as Xueqi immediately had his cover blown. What a substitution! Jin Hong was furious. His face darkened, and he immediately charged out of the 100 Saint City. He did not even bring a single sacrificial god king with him, rushing towards the place of the battle alone. The world of heaven and earth has been destroyed. The disturbance here will probably reach the 100 Saint City very soon. We don't have much time. Let's do it and finish him off quickly. To the other side, Xueqi suddenly bellowed out and launched an attack without any hesitation at all. The power of several hundred sacrificial god kings gathered in him through the assistance of the formation. He swung the sword in his hand violently, and the weapon immediately erupted with light, conjuring a huge strand of sword qi 100 meters long. It slashed towards Jian Chen. His attack contained the power of the primordial realm. The tremendous might within it immediately churned up the sky as the colossal pressure flooded out in the surroundings, alarming all cultivators within a range of several hundred kilometers instantly. In the instant Chu Tian struck out, Zhou Wenbin, Zhou Ji, Kong Feiying, and Gong Rui's all took action as well. Immediately, 5 powerful attacks that had reached the Primaridla realm hurtled towards Jian Chen, sealing off all of his paths of retreat. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2798. Unkillable. Just as Xueqi and the other 4 launched their attacks, the pale scion of 5 Point hovered in the distance, staring straight at Jian Chen. He had been extremely confident in his strength. He was just an early god king, but the combination of the laws of space and laws of time had elevated his battle prowess far beyond his current level. Even regular mid-god kings were not his opponent once he used the world of heaven and earth. Yet, despite his confidence, he had not even managed to last a single attack against Jian Chen. As a result, Jian Chen became almost unfathomable in his eyes despite also being a god king. Yang Yutian is just too powerful. I wonder whether he can survive the attacks from 5 existences akin to primordial realm experts, the scion of 5 Point thought to himself. He was rather eager, as if he wanted to witness Yang Yutian's true strength through this battle. On the other side, an undiscoverable sneer flashed through Jian Chen's eyes as he sensed the 5 powerful attacks around him. In Xueqi and the others' eyes, these primordial realm attacks were what allowed them to stand and protect themselves within the Dark Star world, their greatest trump card against the Dark Star race. However, in Jian Chen's eyes, they were so futile. With the toughness of his chaotic body, the primordial realm attacks they had launched through the formations could not even touch a hair on him even if he stood there defenseless. That was because attacks at the first heavenly layer of Infinite Prime were no longer enough to damage his chaotic body. It could not even leave a scratch on him. However, with the scion of 5 Point spectating on the side, Jian Chen obviously could not display his primordial realm battle prowess. Just when their attacks were about to land on him, Jian Chen gripped a supreme quality Saint Artifact sword and stabbed out 5 times with lightning speed. Every single stab surged with light and was unbelievably fast. Especially when imbued with the laws of space that Jian Chen had purposefully lowered to God King, it led to an illusion where he clearly just stabbed out once, but 5 attacks appeared instead. Boom, 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 boom. The 5 strands of sword qi collided with the attacks violently. With a great rumble, a terrifying storm of energy wreaked havoc in the surroundings. The sword qi Jian Chen had launched was forcefully dispersed before the 5 powerful attacks, while the 5 attacks weakened slightly, worn away by the sword qi. Afterwards, they struck Jian Chen at the same time with their remaining might. Boom! Within the rumble, Jian Chen collapsed on the ground from the attack. His white robes had already been reduced to ashes, revealing an armor made from beast hide. The beast hide armor was also a supreme quality saint artifact, but under the 5 primordial realm attacks, it had become tattered. It was already half destroyed. I never thought you'd actually have a defensive supreme quality saint artifact on you. I've underestimated an independent cultivator like you. However, even if you have a defensive supreme quality saint artifact, it can't change anything today. It'll just make you last a little longer. Young Yutian, have you ever imagined you would suffer a fate like this? Chu Tian laughed viciously. When they attacked Jian Chen, they had also used their primordial realm powers to disturb the space there, making it unstable, so the laws of space would be rendered almost ineffective. This was to prevent Yang Yutian from escaping. Chu Jia, why were you blabbering all that nonsense? The 100 Saints City will learn about the battle here very soon. Once Jin Hong and the others get here, killing Yang Yutian won't be that easy anymore. If we want to kill him, we need to be quick. Gong Ruai said coldly. The power of the primordial realm gathered in him. He seemed to be merged with the many sacrificial god kings as he mobilized everyone's powers to launch a strand of sword chi towards Jian Chen below. Don't worry. Once we strike together, Yang Yutian will be dead for sure. Killing him won't take much time at all. He won't be able to last until his reinforcements arrive. Chu Tian laughed aloud before charging towards Jian Chen with everyone else from all directions. All of their eyes were filled with cold killing intent. They were extremely determined to kill Jian Chen. A sliver of cold light flashed through Jian Chen's eyes too. Today was supposed to be the day when he would kill the 5 of them. However, the spectating scion of 5 Point on the side prevented him from unleashing his true strength, just in case it would lead to unwarranted trouble. The scion of 5 Point is the disciple of the Point Cloud Venerable, while the Point Cloud Venerable has assisted me before. As a result, I obviously can't kill his disciple. However, if I don't kill him and unleash my true strength, he'll see all of it. Once news of it reaches the Dark Star race, it'll be extremely bad for me. My identity as the 5th Hall Master might even be given away. But if I continue to hide my strength, it'll be impossible for me to kill them today. Jian Chen weighed his options inside. As he did that, he clashed with the 5 of them again. In order to conceal his strength properly, he was forced to reduce the armor on him to dust and create a few wounds for himself, so he seemed heavily injured. Only with that could he avoid suspicion. Otherwise, if a God King emerged unscathed even from 5 primordial realm attacks, it would be far too shocking. Only those who had reached peak God King and ranked in the top 10 of the God King's throne could achieve such an astonishing feat. Looks like all I can do is capture the scion of 5 Point and release him when I leave the Dark Star world, thought Jian Chen. This was the only idea he could come up with. However, just when he was about to take action, his heart suddenly skipped a beat. In the direction of the 100 Saints City, he discovered a figure flying rapidly towards this place through the senses of his soul. He had used some kind of secret technique, allowing him to move startlingly fast. He had actually erupted with speed on par with primordial realm experts despite being a mid-god king, shattering through space and crossing thousands of kilometers each moment. Jin Hong is actually coming. Jian Chen frowned. As a Grand Exalt successor, who knew how many ancient secret techniques he had inherited, it was nothing strange for him to possess this kind of speed. However, that would mean his plan to capture the scion of 5 Point and unleash his primordial realm strength to kill Chu Jie and the others had fallen through. Looks like all I can do is last a little longer. Jian Chen was helpless inside. Jin Hong's arrival forced him to continue with his act. Blood sprayed everywhere from his mouth as his strength deflated like a balloon. His face became sheet white, extremely heavily injured as if he was on the brink of death. Ha ha ha, he can't last much longer. He's going to die soon. As Chu Jie launched vicious attacks at Jian Chen, he laughed with cruelty. Looking at how pitifully weak Yang Yutian had become and comparing it to his arrogance in the 2 World Mountains, he felt great satisfaction. He seemed to finally vent the sense of humiliation and frustration he had repressed for so long. Nearby, the scion of 5 Point watched on indifferently. He had no intentions of interfering. In his eyes, Yang Yutian's fate had nothing to do with him. Even if Yang Yutian had mentioned his master, the Point Cloud Venerable, he still had no intentions of assisting him. The reason why he had remained here was because he wanted to personally witness just how long the expert who had defeated him in a single strike could last in an encirclement of 5 primordial realm experts. Or in other words, he wanted to see how Yang Yutian would die. Sigh, a prodigy is about to die young. Master is right. The vast saints world has never lacked monstrously talented prodigies, but 99% of these people will die young on their path of growth. Less than 1 in 100 can truly become great experts. The scion of 5 Point had already changed into a new set of white robes. He crossed his arms as he hovered in the air, sighing to himself. In the battlefield, Powerful pulses of energy constantly tore through the surroundings and booms rang out endlessly. The 5 of them continued to launch wild attacks at Jian Chen, and their rhythm sped up. That was because the 5 of them had noticed something strange. Yang Yutian was already heavily injured from their attacks. He was covered in blood, and his life force extremely weak, as if he was on his last breath. However, he just did not die. Whenever they thought Yang Yutian was about to give in, only requiring a single strike to easily kill him, the outcome when their attacks landed on him would be coughing up a few mouthfuls of blood and becoming even more heavily injured in his near-death state. However, he just did not die. If it were just once, then so be it. However, this continued for several times in a row, which almost drove the 5 of them crazy. In that instant, they even began to wonder how many lives Yang Yutian possessed. How was he still alive after taking on so many fatal attacks? He was simply unkillable. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2799, A Grand Exalt's Legacy. God damn it, just how hard is he to kill? Why is he still alive? Chu Jie finally could not help but curse aloud. With how heavily injured Yang Yutian was, just a single glance of him was enough to send a chill down his spine. If regular cultivators had suffered wounds as severe as his, who knew how many times over they would have died already? Yet Yang Yutian just hung on. Damn it! He's already so injured. I refuse to believe we can't kill him today. Attack his soul. Xueqi grinded his teeth. His eyes had become slightly bloodshot. He seemed to be going crazy. Yang Yutian's flesh is very, very tough, and the head is the toughest part of the body. I've struck him 3 times in the head with the strength of the primordial realm, yet I haven't even put a dent in it. Even if we can't destroy his head, we have to shake apart his soul. Everyone, let's use our full strength and target his head with secret techniques. Immediately, the 5 of them ground their teeth as they began to use powerful secret techniques. These secret techniques were powerful attacks the ancestors of their organizations had personally emerged from seclusion and specially created for the formation they used. It could make their attacks even greater. In the Dark Star world, they had used this secret technique a total of 2 times. The first time was when they took back the 100 Saint City, when they encircled the Vice Hall Master Duff, forcefully elevating their battle prowess at the first heavenly layer to repel the second heavenly layer Duff. The second time was when the 7th Hall Master, Getty, personally arrived at the 100 Saint City. They had used this secret technique to endure Getty's attack. Even though it was almost useless before Getty, the secret technique's power made it their greatest trump card, something that they took pride in. However, it would place an extremely great burden on both them and the sacrificial god kings in the formation when the secret technique was used, so they could not afford to use it unless it truly mattered. Immediately, a terrifying pressure that rivaled peak first heavenly layer infinite primes radiated out. A blurry figure appeared in their formations, radiating with chilling, terrifying pressure. These figures were the ancestors of their organizations. They had used the secret technique to conjure a figure of their grand prime ancestors. Even though the energy was limited to the first heavenly layer of infinite prime, it did contain an indescribable power of ways. Of course, not everyone's secret techniques were the same. An illusionary sword would appear out of nowhere in one of their formations, radiating with blinding light. The sword was their clan treasure, a high-quality god artifact, wielded by their strongest ancestor. There was also a formation that condensed a pitch-black finger out of pure energy, radiating with chilling, black light. In short, the figures they condensed with their secret techniques all varied, but it all reached the peak of the first heavenly layer, or even approaching the second heavenly layer. In the next moment, the 5 secret techniques hurtled towards Jian Chen with enough power to make any god king pale. This time, they all targeted Jian Chen's head. Boom! Within the rumble, Jian Chen was launched far away. The powerful shockwaves wreaked havoc in the surroundings as the ground below was reduced to a mess, covered in great fissures. The 5 of them were slightly out of breath as they stared right at Jian Chen's head. They wanted to see whether their strongest attack had managed to shatter Jian Chen's head or not. However, their hearts sunk slightly very soon, as they discovered that Jian Chen's head was still intact apart from being covered in blood. It had not shattered like they had been hoping. Even if his head hasn't shattered from such a powerful attack, His soul must have been shaken to pieces, said Gong Rui's as he stared straight at Jian Chen, who had been launched away. This time, Jian Chen flew several dozen kilometers away before falling to the ground, laying there without moving. However, this only lasted for less than 10 seconds under their nervous and uneasy gazes. Jian Chen climbed up, with difficulty, from the ground. His face was covered in blood, which was quite a vicious and horrifying sight. They could no longer make out his face. He's still not dead? How is he still alive? Chu Jie, Zhou Ji, Gong Rui's, Kong Feiying, and Zhao Wenbin all behaved like they had seen a ghost. Their eyes were wide open as their faces were filled with disbelief. Nearby, the scion of 5 Point who had been spectating the entire time blinked his eyes as hard as he could. He too was filled with disbelief. Ha 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 ha, I obtained a primordial realm expert's legacy. I possess many methods to protect myself, or I would have never been able to emerge from the two-world mountains. Your strength right now is still not enough to kill me. Covered in blood, Jian Chen laughed aloud. His presence was extremely feeble as his flames of life wavered, as if they could go out at any time. But at this moment, an extremely powerful and pure vital energy suddenly blossomed in his body. Even though just a tiny sliver of it leaked out of his body, it immediately affected the world around him. The wind began to blow, and the sky within several 100,000 kilometers turned blood red in a single instant. It was as if this vital energy possessed an absolute power that could change the world. Even just a sliver of it could shake up the world and alter time and space. As a matter of fact, the vital energy could interfere with the ways of the world to a certain degree. It was as if the vital energy itself was a manifestation of ways. Chu Jie and the others' faces changed rapidly. They could sense a paramount pressure from the vital energy, along with an extremely ancient and weathered sensation. This feeling was like a great power hiding unfathomable mysteries, which led to an extremely severe influence over their souls. As they felt shock, the urge to drop to their knees and yield bloomed inside them. What is that? What kind of legacy is that? Why do I feel like yielding before this vital energy? It's even more intense than when I face our ancestor. This presence seems to be rather similar to Jin Hong. Immediately, the 5 of them shuddered inside. They stared at Jian Chen with their eyes wide open as their faces were plastered with extreme shock, disbelief, doubt, and joy. These emotions flashed across their faces rapidly, which was quite an interesting sight. This was because they all thought of the same thing at that moment. It was exactly this thought that made their hearts surge. They had always known Yang Yutian obtained the legacy of a primordial realm expert. Originally, they thought it was just a regular primordial realm expert, so they never cared about it. But now, the vital energy he gave off was extremely similar to the presence Jin Hong emitted when he used his Grand Exalt secret techniques in the two-world mountains, which immediately made them connect the dots and arrive at a conclusion so terrifying that they struggled to believe it. A Grand Exalt's legacy. Don't tell me Yang Yutian has obtained a Grand Exalt's legacy? Their heart began to beat faster as blood surged through their body. It was no wonder Yang Yutian could last so long under their attacks. He had actually obtained a Grand Exalt's legacy. Now, there was no longer a need for them to say anything else. They all knew what they had to do. At that moment, the 5 of them completely forgot about their hatred towards Yang Yutian. Their eyes had already become filled with joy and greed. They all rushed towards Jian Chen madly. Stop! At this moment, a great voice boomed out from the distance like thunder, erupting in their ears. It was filled with anger. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2800. Counter-attack. Jin Hong finally arrived. He had used a secret technique, pushing his speed to the limit and crossing a tremendous distance in a flash. He was currently flying towards Jian Chen. Before he arrived, the senses of his soul had already expanded over, giving him a complete grasp of the situation here. He saw the primordial realm formations that Chu Jie and the others had assembled, radiating with surging pulses of energy. He also saw the bloodied Jian Chen, who had become heavily injured by their primordial realm strength. His life force was so weak that it seemed like it could go out at any time. Jian Chen's circumstances made Jin Hong furious. He was unable to remain relaxed and indifferent to everything like before anymore. He surged with fury as his eyes shone with icy killing intent. At the same time, the power of the bloodline within him reacted to the vitality that the ancient Sky Wolf's essence blood gave off, riling up as a result. The sense of desire it gave off was unprecedented. The intense temptation and attraction rammed against Jin Hong's willpower as a bewitching force, expressing what it felt to Jin Hong. However, Jin Hong completely ignored the activity from his bloodline. With his iron will, he forcefully suppressed the effects of the bloodline on his mind. His eyes were filled with raging fury as he drew closer at extreme speeds with killing intent. Because he was still several million kilometers away from Jian Chen, it still took him some time to cross this distance even with the speed he moved at right now. Perhaps it would not take too long, but he could see that Jian Chen was already between the jaws of death, unable to last much longer. Facing such dire circumstances, just a few seconds were enough for too many irreversible matters to occur. Oh no, Jin Hong has actually come. How has he come so quickly? Chu, quick, we have to kill Yang Yutian before Jin Hong arrives, or all the arrangements we've made today will go to waste. Their faces changed and immediately became frantic, as they knew that once Jin Hong arrived, it would probably be impossible for them to kill Yang Yutian, let alone obtain the fortuitous encounter that Yang Yutian possessed. None of them dared to underestimate Jin Hong. He was the successor of a Grand Exalt after all. Just that identity alone made them extremely cautious and fearful. The five of them immediately unleashed their powerful secret techniques again, regardless of the costs and consequences. Immediately, the figures of the Grand Prime Ancestors and high-quality god artifacts appeared again, pulsing with alarming energy. How dare you? Jin Hong's voice boomed out. His rage was unstoppable. He immediately performed a series of seals before pointing out. The gesture seemed to possess paramount power. With that, the laws in the space before him immediately descended into chaos, as if it had been interfered with by something invisible. The space became extremely disorderly. Jin Hong directly rushed into the disorderly space. He vanished instantly. By the time he reappeared, he was already several million kilometers away, appearing like he had teleported. He had crossed the distance in a single instant, such that he was only 1,000 kilometers away from Jian Chen now. Afterwards, his energy gushed out like a tsunami, and a tremendous pressure filled the surroundings. The illusionary figure of the ancient Sky Wolf had appeared behind him silently. Afterwards, all of his energy surged, and he let out a howl at the sky. Immediately, a howl seemed to fill the entire Darkstar world. With that, the very ground shook as the yin and yang of the world inverted. Everyone seemed to yield in subservience, and the world trembled. Just when the five of them were prepared to launch their condensed secret techniques, the wolf howl arrived. The howl pierced everything, bypassing all defenses and directly penetrating the protective energy of their primordial realm formations. It reached their minds like a clap of thunder. The howl possessed an indescribably terrifying power to stun. It moved through their ears and directly interfered with their souls, making their very consciousness halt for an instant. They were thrown into a daze, frozen in the same postures as before. This was an extremely strange sight, as if Jin Hong's howl had made space freeze and time halt. It made the brains of the five of them and the several thousand sacrificial god kings short-circuit, throwing them into a complete daze. In the next moment, a string of explosions erupted in the formations. The formations that linked their powers suddenly collapsed. In a mere 5 seconds, the primordial realm formations that the five of them depended on the most collapsed just like that. Even the powerful secret techniques they had condensed seemed to lose control with the destruction of the formations, dispersing in the surroundings as tremendous energy. This sight stunned the Scion of 5 Point, who was watching on from a distance. He was overcome by shock. He knew extremely well how powerful the primordial realm formations were, yet a formation as powerful as that had actually collapsed from a single howl from Jin Hong. They seemed so feeble. This is a Grand Exalt secret technique. The Scion of 5 Point gulped. In that moment, his fear towards Jin Hong ran so deep that it reached his bones. Then he looked at Jian Chen. Although he had not been able to roughly identify the origins of the vital energy that Jian Chen gave off like Chu Tian and the others, as he did not have any contact with Jin Hong, he could still tell it was something extremely impressive from the startling might the vital energy gave off. As a result, he too was tempted to a certain degree. However, after weighing the consequences, he chose not to act recklessly in the end. This was because neither his identity or the power of the sect behind him could support any reckless actions he took in the 100 Saint City. At this moment, the 5 of them all returned to their senses. They gazed at the collapsed primordial realm formations and at Jin Hong, who was 1,000 kilometers away. Their faces paled. As they felt shocked over how easily Jin Hong had destroyed their formations, they also found this extremely difficult to accept. They were not afraid of Jin Hong, as even when they knew they could not defeat Jin Hong would never actually kill them. They represented the clans behind them. Even though their status was nowhere close to Jin Hong's in the Wolf clan, they still carried some of their clan's pride and dignity. What they refused to accept was how they could only watch helplessly as they brushed past the possible Grand Exalt's legacy on Yang Yutian. They could only watch helplessly as a tremendous fortune that could potentially change their lives brushed past them. The tremendous feeling of disappointment made them develop intense regret and resentment. This resentment was obviously directed towards Jin Hong. Ha 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 ha, how are you going to kill me now without the primordial realm formations? Looks like the one who'll die today is not me, but you. At this moment, Jian Chen let out a roar of laughter with his bloody mouth. The vital energy that the essence blood from the ancient skywolf had been condensed with all the power within him into 5-meter-long arrows of vitality before shooting towards the 5 of them like red bolts of lightning. Of course, the arrows of vitality were just a cover, as Jian Chen was still unable to control the power of the essence blood as he wished, much less use the power to injure anyone. The true killing intent in this move was a feeble strand of sword chi hidden within the vital energy. The sword chi was feeble, but the power it contained would be described as earth-shattering in the Dark Star world. That was because this was a terrifying strand of sword chi that could kill primordial realm experts. At this moment, Jian Chen had finally found a suitable opportunity. He used the vital energy as a cover to launch a counterattack. This counterattack would result in certain death. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2801. The essence blood exposed in that instant. The surging red light from the 5 arrows of vital energy enveloped the 5 of them. The expressions of Chu Jie, Zhou Ji, Kong Feiying, Zhao Wenbin, and Gong Rui's changed drastically. They had already witnessed the horrors of the vital energy before. That was a terrifying power that could make the entire world pale. They had already been frightened to their wits' end. And more importantly, they had already guessed that the vital energy was probably connected to a Grand Exalt's legacy, or maybe it was the power that Grand Exalts possessed. Before such high-level power, even if they had the primordial realm formations, they were helpless, let alone the fact that the primordial realm formations were already in shambles. Their strength had reverted to its previous state, making them even more helpless before a power they believed to have reached the level of Grand Exalts already. This was all because they were insufficiently powerful. Otherwise, if a primordial realm expert was present, they would probably be able to see through the disguise of the 5 arrows of vital energy under Jian Chen's control. Yang Yutian, I am a core disciple of the Yuqiong sect. I possess esteemed status within the Yuqiong sect. If you kill me, the Yuqiong sect will never spare you. As the terrifying vital energy enveloped him, the life-threatening danger finally made Zhou Ji's spirit collapse. He barked out fearfully, clearly trying to bargain for his life. Yang Yutian, I'll clean the slate with you right now. I definitely won't cause you any more problems in the future. I just hope you can stop immediately. Under the threat of death, Gong Rui's temporarily tossed his pride aside too, begging for mercy despite the humiliation and reluctance he felt. That was what he said, but resentment and intense killing intent was still hidden within the depths of his eyes. Kong Feiying of the Congqiong clan and Zhao Wenbin of the Zhou family communicated with him secretly too. They had all paled from fright, as they could sense the presence of death that made their very souls tremble from the powerful vital energy. Even with the sacrificial god kings they had brought with them, even with the protection of the supreme quality saint artifacts on them, they did even feel a hint of safety before this presence of death. However, Jian Chen ignored their pleas. His gaze was cold and his killing intent was resolute. Controlling the tiny strands of sword chi masked by the vital energy, he plunged it mercilessly into their heads. Silently, the tiny strands of sword chi vanished into their foreheads. This was a terrifying power that could even kill primordial realm experts. Before this power,
The 5 of them were obviously unable to put up any resistance at all as mere god kings.
In that instant, Xueqi, Kong Feiying, Xueqi, Gong Rui's, and Zhao Wenbin's souls shattered. They died on the spot. Afterwards, the vital energy immediately entered their heads through the wound on their foreheads, leaving behind a slight trace to make it seem like they had died to the vital energy. The vital energy that filled the surroundings gradually dispersed. When the surroundings cleared up once more, Xueqi, Xueqi, Kong Feiying, Gong Rui's, and Zhao Wenbin had already been reduced to corpses, laying as still as a log on the ground. The sacrificial god kings they had brought with them became stunned with absolutely no idea about what to do. As for Jian Chen, he seemed like all his energy had been drained away. Not only was his presence feeble, but his life force flickered, as if it had already run out. Afterwards, he shut his eyes and collapsed on the ground, falling unconscious.
As he fainted, the droplet of essence blood from the ancient sky wolf within his body seemed to break free from some kind of restraint.
The pure vital energy erupted from the constraints of Jian Chen's body, directly leaking out and revolving around him.
At the same time, the droplet of essence blood seemed to develop a mind of its own, moving slowly through Jian Chen's body before arriving in his mouth at the very end.
It was as if it wanted to break free from Jian Chen's control and fly out. However, Jian Chen clenched his teeth, using his mouth as a prison to block its only way out. The essence blood was trapped in there. Right now, Jian Chen had completely lowered his guard. Stealing this droplet of Grand Exalt's essence blood would not require much cultivation at all. One only had to pry open Jian Chen's mouth gently, and the essence blood would be theirs. Nearby, the Scion of 5 Points stared at the unconscious Jian Chen. He could sense the item radiating with pure vital energy from Jian Chen's mouth as he hesitated.
Even though he had failed to recognize this to be the essence blood of a Grand Exalt, he knew it was something impressive.
Making up his mind, he appeared beside Jian Chen instantly. "Piss off. I don't care who you are, but if you take Yang Yutian's possessions, I'll hunt you down to the ends of the earth. I won't even spare your sect."
Just as the Scion of 5 Point was about to retrieve the essence blood from Jian Chen's mouth, Jin Hong's furious voice rolled over.
He had turned into a streak of light, crossing the last 1,000 kilometers extremely quickly. His aura surged, vaguely resembling a valiant, running, silver wolf. He directly headbutted towards the Scion of 5 Point like he was unstoppable. And when they collided, the space rippled under the great power, like a pebble had been tossed into a calm lake. The space there was under the interference of Jin Hong's power. Even though it was not a particularly great interference, it would be difficult to use the laws of space unless their comprehension had surpassed Jin Hong's cultivation. The Scion of 5 Points' expression changed. He immediately became sterner than he had ever been before. He was confident in himself, but he also knew about Jin Hong's renowned title as the successor of a Grand Exalt. Even within the vast saints' world, successors of Grand Exalts were extremely resplendent figures. Although he was still not particularly powerful, no one could afford to brush him aside. Faced with someone like him, the Scion of 5 Point obviously refused to be careless. Even though he was unable to control space as he wished under Jin Hong's interference, the power of the laws was still unaffected. With the laws of space in one hand and the laws of time in the other, he merged them between his hands, which was much more complicated than simple addition. He launched a strike at Jin Hong with his full strength. Boom! Within the great rumble, the Scion of 5 Point was struck viciously by the silver wolf that Jin Hong had become. Not only had his attack failed to harm the silver wolf, but he was even knocked far away instead, spurting with blood. His ribs had completely shattered, and his entire chest caved in. The terrifying force shook his organs to pieces. The Scion of 5 Point coughed up many mouthfuls of blood. He stared at Jin Hong deeply and fearfully before fleeing for his life without even looking back. He left the range where space was under Jin Hong's interference, and he immediately pulsed with the powers of space. He vanished in a single instant. Jin Hong did not chase after him. He had not even looked at the Scion of 5 Point properly the entire time. His eyes had remained fixed on the unconscious Jian Chen on the ground the entire time. His eyes were filled with undisguisable shock and disbelief. He was the successor of the ancient Skywolf, the one closest to the ancient Skywolf in the current age. It was even possible to say he was the most intimate with the ancient Skywolf. As a result, he recognized the origins of the pulses of vitality from Jian Chen in a single glance. This left him shocked, extremely shocked. His heart surged violently without any signs of settling down. In that moment, he even began to wonder whether there was anything wrong with his senses. He doubted whether his eyes were working. He even wondered whether he was dreaming. That was because he actually sensed the existence of a droplet of the ancient sky wolf's essence blood from Yang Yutian. This was essence blood, not regular blood. It was far, far more precious than regular blood. The two could not even be compared to each other. He had sensed that Yang Yutian possessed something that his bloodline desired several times now. Jin Hong had come up with numerous possibilities for the reason behind this, reaching many different conclusions. However, never did he imagine that the item that riled up his bloodline on Yang Yutian was actually a droplet of the ancient sky wolf's essence blood. The shock that the essence blood had caused Jin Hong even made it impossible for him to avert his attention towards the 5 prodigies who had already died. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2802. Clearing away the mysteries. Even Jin Hong struggled to maintain his composure as he faced the droplet of Grand Exalt's essence blood before him. His heart heated up as blood flowed through his body faster than ever. The power of his bloodline smoldered, as if it was about to burn. This was because the droplet of Grand Exalt's essence blood in Jian Chen's possession shared the same origins as his bloodline. They had come from the same person. The powers that could be unleashed from the essence blood would obviously become highly limited in the hands of others, but it would be a completely different story when it came to Jin Hong. Not only could he absorb it completely and use all the energy within the essence blood, but he could even use the essence blood to strengthen his bloodline, or even make his bloodline evolve to a higher level. Jin Hong stared at the unconscious Jian Chen with mixed feelings. He obviously understood it would be a piece of cake if he wanted to take the essence blood from Jian Chen right now, but he did not do that. Despite what he was feeling, his eyes remained clear the entire time. He had not become blinded by desire. He pointed at Jian Chen's throat and pure energy surged out, arriving in Jian Chen's mouth and leading the Grand Exalt's essence blood that had wanted to flee the entire time back into Jian Chen's body. Afterwards, he took out a jade bottle from his space ring. The moment he removed the lid, a dense aura of life immediately radiated out. The aura of life was tremendous and extremely pure. Moreover, it had completely exceeded the truth tier, well and truly reaching the god tier. Just the aura of life it gave off turned the wasteland within 1,000 meters into a lush path of greenery. It was clearly impossible for this item to have been brought in from outside. It was something rare from the Dark Star world. Jin Hong dribbled some of the green fluid that was rich with the aura of life onto Jian Chen. The moment the green fluid came in contact with Jian Chen's skin, it silently dissolved, having been absorbed already. In the next moment, Jian Chen's frighteningly horrific wounds began to heal at a visible rate. Even the pieces of missing flesh began to regrow. The green fluid filled with the tremendous aura of life clearly had unbelievably wondrous effects when it came to healing wounds. In less than a minute, Jian Chen had made a complete recovery. Of course, only his flesh wounds had been healed. His heavily damaged soul was clearly unable to be completely healed. As a result, even though all wounds vanished from his body, Jian Chen was still pale white. It was also at this moment that Jian Chen opened his eyes. He remained in a feeble state, his face haggard and his eyes dim. He gazed at the crouching Jin Hong beside him and opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but he was stopped by Jin Hong. Jin Hong said sternly, "Don't talk for now. I'll bring you back to the 100 Saints City immediately. We'll talk once we get back." With that, Jin Hong was about to return to the 100 Saints City with Jian Chen. "There's no need to return to the 100 Saints City. My wounds are mostly fine now. I just need a safe place to rest up, and I'll be fine." Jian Chen struggled to his feet. He glanced past the several thousand god kings Chu Jie and the others had brought with them, but he had no intentions of killing them all. Afterwards, he took to the air in a wobbly manner, flying into the distance. At the same time he said, "Jin Hong, I know you have questions. Let's find a place where I can explain it all to you slowly." On the outskirts of the Two World Mountains, on a mountain peak shrouded by dense mist, Jian Chen sat with his legs crossed and his robes soaked with blood. He was enveloped with a dense layer of vital energy, such that he basked in the blood-red light. It seemed like a huge, blood-red cocoon. Jin Hong sat beside him. As he gazed at the red light around Jian Chen, his eyes became filled with mixed feelings, along with deep suspicion and intense curiosity. He was obviously curious about the origins of the droplet of the ancient sky wolf's essence blood. As for Jian Chen's wounds, Jin Hong had instead stopped worrying. First with the spring water of life, and now with the power from the Grand Exalt's blood, he believed Jian Chen could make a complete recovery very soon under the healing of these two powers. However, unbeknownst to Jin Hong, the power of the essence blood was not as wondrously effective to Jian Chen as he imagined it to be. Jian Chen purposefully radiated with the power of the essence blood as a disguise, to make everything he went through seem reasonable. Moreover, there was something else that Jin Hong had failed to notice. An invisible power enveloped a radius of 100,000 kilometers around this place and cut off all presences, such that even if presences leaked out, it would not reach the capital city of the Dark Star race. This was Jian Chen's ultimate will. Actually, he had already enveloped this region with his ultimate will when he began using the power of the essence blood. All of his wounds, the unnatural activity of the essence blood in his body, and even the fainting had been an act that Jian Chen had purposely put on. He did this to give off a false impression of being feeble. He had appeared so feeble in front of Jin Hong, even clearly exposing the existence of the Grand Exalt's essence blood to him, in order to see how Jin Hong would react. He wanted to see if Jin Hong would try and take it for himself. In the end, Jin Hong's response did not disappoint Jian Chen at all, and Jian Chen began to recognize Jin Hong from the bottom of his heart. You must be very curious where the droplet of essence blood in my body comes from, right? At this moment, Jian Chen's voice rang out as he healed. He was enveloped by the red cocoon, so it was impossible to make out his figure. Hearing that, Jin Hong could not help but turn his head and gaze at Jian Chen in the vital energy. After a moment of thought, he said, "Are you saying you know the origins of the droplet of blood in your body?" "I do. Not only do I know its origins, but I even know where you obtained your Grand Exalt's legacy, as a late friend and I accidentally opened the place containing the ancient Skywolf's legacy," Jian Chen said calmly. "What?" Jin Hong was stunned. He sprang on to his feet. In that moment, the shock that Jian Chen had brought him was even more intense than when Jin Hong discovered the ancient Skywolf's essence blood on him. His dire wolf clan had always treated the discovery of the ancient Skywolf's legacy as the clan's greatest honor. They believed they had been blessed by heavens, and it was destined by fate. However, never did he imagine that this was actually all connected to Yang Yutian. The reason why he had obtained the Grand Exalt's legacy in the first place was all because of Yang Yutian seated right beside him. Yang Yutian had instead become his greatest benefactor. For a moment, Jin Hong had no idea how to respond. His emotions were extremely mixed. If it really was like what Yang Yutian said, did that not mean he owed a huge favor to Yang Yutian? And this favor would be so great that he would probably never be able to return it, even throughout his entire life. After all, if Yang Yutian had not opened the location of the legacy, he would have never received the legacy. Without the legacy, he, Jin Hong, would probably still be someone insignificant in his clan. He would have never been able to enjoy his current glory. Without any exaggeration, Yang Yutian had basically given him a new lease on life. Jin Hong took a few deep breaths before taking a few steps back slowly and bowing deeply towards Jian Chen. His face was filled with sincere gratitude. "Brother Jin Hong, there's no need for you to be like this. Chosen as the successor by the ancient Skywolf, this is a fortuitous encounter that belongs to you. I'm just curious why you never tried taking the droplet of essence blood from me? I've already become heavily injured. With your strength, taking the droplet of essence blood from me would be a piece of cake. Aren't you interested in the essence blood at all? That's a droplet of a Grand Exalt's essence blood after all, and it shares the same origins as your legacy. It can have an unimaginable effect on you," Jian Chen continued. "If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters." Chapter 2803. The pill formula obtained. Jin Hong took in a deep breath and said, "Brother Yang Yutian, that's correct. I am extremely drawn to the droplet of Grand Exalt's essence blood on you, and because it shares its origins with my legacy, it can probably benefit me even beyond my wildest imaginations. It might even be able to change my fate once again. However, you just don't understand me.
You don't understand what kind of person I am, because I, Jin Hong, am not one to develop ill intentions upon seeing the wealth of others, and I am even less of a bandit who only knows how to rob by force.
Stealing someone else's fortune has never been a part of my principles. Everyone has their fortunes and luck.
Being able to obtain the droplet of essence blood, that is your fortune and luck. Under the same logic, the legacy left behind by senior ancient Skywolf had chosen me instead of my many clansmen as my fortune and luck. If everyone develops ill intentions upon seeing the wealth of others like what you believe, if everyone robs by force when they see something good regardless of the consequences, this Grand Exalt's legacy of mine probably would not be in my hands anymore. It would have been taken by the experts in the clan a long time ago. Jin Hong said that eloquently and generously, completely originating from the bottom of his heart. And as he said that, he radiated with righteousness.
Jian Chen glanced at Jin Hong deeply. He could obviously sense Jin Hong's righteousness. Throughout the vast saints' world, he really had not seen a lot of people who could be so generous like Jin Hong.
As long as the benefits were large enough, as long as the temptations were great enough, even peak experts who had reached Grand Prime would try and take by force without any sense of shame.
In the past, when he fled through the saints' world with the Anata Tower, there had been many examples of this. There was also when Xiao Man became the master of the Neptunian Divine Palace. A group of Grand Primes had been drawn over in an attempt to take it by force. Jin Hong, let me ask you a question. Do you really not want the droplet of essence blood on me? Jian Chen asked calmly. I do want it. How can't I want it? If this droplet of essence blood belonged to nobody, I'd definitely contend for it, with the essence blood ending up with the strongest. However, the essence blood already belongs to you.
And I had only obtained the Grand Exalt's legacy thanks to you opening the place of the legacy.
As a result, I will never desire the droplet of essence blood on you. Not even a bit. Otherwise, I'll be betraying myself, Jin Hong said. I hadn't misjudged you. The light around Jian Chen gradually subsided, revealing his body. But at this moment, he had already made a complete recovery. Apart from being slightly mentally exhausted, he seemed to be in perfect health. Afterwards, the essence blood of the ancient Skywolf drifted out of Jian Chen's body slowly. Dense, vital energy immediately seeped out, turning the surroundings completely red. Jin Hong, you have a much greater use for this droplet of essence blood.
If you leave it with me, it'll just gather dust, so I'll give you the essence blood now so that it can return to the person it belongs with.
Jian Chen drifted the essence blood towards Jin Hong slowly. It was not a large droplet, but the terrifying vital energy and power hidden within could be regarded as earth-shaking.
That was because it was on just too high of a level which people could only lift their heads and stare at.
Jin Hong immediately rejected him. Brother Yang Yutian, you mustn't do that. If you don't have this droplet of essence blood, your strength will definitely be heavily affected. Jin Hong had already come to believe that Jian Chen's cultivation-defying battle prowess, his tenacious life force that made him seemingly unkillable, and his terrifying recovery rate all originated from this droplet of essence blood. Brother Jin Hong, this droplet of essence blood isn't as useful to me as you think. However, it might even be able to change your fate in your hands. And I'm not giving this to you for free. I want to exchange it for something.
Jian Chen was unfazed, as if the droplet of essence blood did not mean much to him at all.
He remained as composed as ever. Jin Hong took in a deep breath and asked, What do you want to exchange it for? I want the formula for refining 100 Tribulations God King pills.
The formula of the 100 Tribulations God King's pill was obtained by the seniors of my clan after paying quite the price, but it's nowhere close to the value of a droplet of Grand Exalt's essence blood, Jin Hong said.
Are you going to exchange with me or not? If you're not, I can always exchange it with the Heavenly Crane clan. I'm certain they'll be extremely willing to make this deal. Jian Chen looked at Jin Hong with a slight smile. I'll do the exchange. Jin Hong gritted his teeth before bowing deeply towards Jian Chen again. He was overwhelmed with gratitude. Brother Yang Yutian, I can never return this favor with how great it is. If you ever need me, I'll definitely do everything I can to assist you. Afterwards, Jin Hong did not try to turn it down anymore. He directly accepted the essence blood, but he did not refine it in a hurry. Instead,
He contacted the 100 Saint City in a hurry to send people to the ruins of the spirit's world for the pill formula. There was a grand prime of the Dire Wolf clan waiting at the entrance of the Darkstar world. Jin Hong's request was directly delivered to his hands. Jin Hong actually requires the formula for the 100 Tribulations God King pill? That's strange. What does he need it for? The people of the Darkstar race trapped in the world of the fallen beast don't seem to require the pill formula, right? The ancestor of the Dire Wolf clan who received the message was filled with doubt. In the past, our clan had an agreement with the person who created the pill formula, such that it is restricted to our clan, and we're forbidden from passing it on to someone else. Not only is our Dire Wolf clan bound to this agreement, but all the other peak organizations who obtained the pill formula from him are bound to it too. As a result, if Jin Hong uses the formula for himself, that's not exactly breaching the agreement, but if he gives it to someone else, then our clan will have broken the agreement, and will have to cough up quite a large sum of resources. Whatever. Jin Hong is our clan's treasured genius. We're depending on him to lead us into a period of glory in the future. The clan should do its best to fulfill any request from him. In the Darkstar world, on the same mountain in the outskirts of the Two World Mountains, Jian Chen and Jin Hong waited there for 2 days before a sacrificial god king from the Dire Wolf clan finally delivered the pill formula. Jin Hong handed the pill formula to Jian Chen sternly and said, "Yang Yutian, the ancestor has warned me. This pill formula is restricted to a single clan or organization. If it is passed to someone else outside the clan or organization, there'll be quite the price to pay." That's because even our clan had to pay some costs in order to obtain the pill formula. Before we obtained it, we established an agreement. If we break this agreement and pass it on to someone who doesn't belong to our clan, we'll have to pay quite a large price as a penalty. Of course, we'll shoulder the penalties that result from the pill formula in our possession, but once you've obtained it, you should limit the formula to within your organization if you have one. You must not pass it to another organization, as probably no ordinary person can bear the consequences. Looks like the pill formula has got quite the origin, seeing how even a peak clan like your Dire Wolf clan has to be so cautious. Jian Chen held the pill formula and could not help but become excited. With the pill formula, it would only be a matter of time for him to convert all the high-grade God King grass, over 30,000 stalks of them, into God King pills. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2804. The Darkstar Emperor Jian Chen glanced through the pill formula roughly. A detailed method and list of steps to refine the 100 Tribulations God King pill was clearly recorded on there. Even all the materials it required were listed. God King grass was just a crucial material for refining the pill. In reality, there were several dozen supplementary materials that went into refining 100 Tribulations God King pills. However, none of these supplementary materials were particularly rare. He could purchase them on a large scale in the Saints' world. Once I get back to the Tian Yuan clan, I need to get to work and refine some pills. Right now, the Tian Yuan clan has Senior Su Ran, a chaotic prime, watching over it, as well as a few infinite primes recruited from elsewhere. However, the clan basically supports these primordial realm experts as deposits of strength to the clan. Rarely do we use them. Only the central force of God Kings are frequently used. Right now, basically 90% of the God Kings in the clan were recruited. There's a pitiful number of God Kings that actually originate from the clan. Once these high-grade God Kings pills are refined, they'll be perfect for making up the central force of the Tian Yuan clan, Jian Chen calculated to himself. He had obtained the pill formula for refining God King pills, and he possessed the materials too. Everything was ready now, and he only lacked one crucial element. At that moment, he even became tempted to rush back to the Tian Yuan clan immediately and refine pills. Brother Yang Yutian, after I return to the 100 Saint City, I plan on leaving the Darkstar world to absorb the droplet of Grand Exalt's essence blood. I need to do it under the ancestors' watch. If nothing goes wrong, my strength should skyrocket once I absorb the blood completely. There's even a chance for me to directly reach the Primaridla realm, Jin Hong said as he struggled to hide his excitement. He was still extremely young right now, nowhere close to 1,000 years old. If he really could reach the primordial realm within a millennium, it would definitely become a legendary story recorded in the annals of history. The vast saints' world possessed countless geniuses, even plenty that possessed almost unprecedented talent. However, over these countless years, there had only been a handful that had reached the primordial realm within a millennium. Then allow me to congratulate you first, Brother Jin Hong. Let's hope Brother Jin Hong can reach the primordial realm soon. Jian Chen clasped his hands, but as soon as he said that, his heart suddenly shuddered. In that moment, he detected with his superior senses an extremely powerful presence come and go in a flash in an extremely distant place. It moved extremely quickly, barging straight into the two-world mountains like the Lord of the Mountains had come home, without hiding anything at all. It vanished into the depths of the two-world mountains instantly. The Dark Star Emperor. Jian Chen shivered inside. The presence was so powerful that it had basically already exceeded the 9th heavenly layer of infinite prime. It basically came from a chaotic prime. There was only a single person with such unparalleled prowess throughout the entire Dark Star world. Jian Chen immediately became stern. The Dark Star Emperor had actually emerged from secluded cultivation, and he had even entered the depths of the two-world mountains in person. This alarmed him. Brother Jin Hong, I've already wasted enough time here. I need to set off to hunt life-devouring beasts, so we'll bid farewell to one another here. All right, once you return to the 100 Saint City, could you pass a message on to He Chanqian for me? The Dark Star world won't be very peaceful in the near future, with something big about to happen. It would be best if she left here. With that, Jian Chen turned around and left, vanishing into the mist very soon. Jin Hong opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but Jian Chen had already vanished. Jian Chen's words towards the end filled him with doubt. He was rather puzzled. The Dark Star world would not be very peaceful in the near future? Something big was going to happen? If something big really was going to happen, they should have received news of it first in the 100 Saint City. How could Yang Yutian, an independent cultivator without any organizations that provided him with information in the Dark Star world, learn about information that even they were clueless about before them? However, seeing how serious Yang Yutian was, he did not seem like he was joking, which left Jin Hong at a temporary loss about what to do. Did Yang Yutian really know some hidden secrets? Looks like this Yang Yutian really isn't as simple as he seems on the surface, Jin Hong murmured. At that moment, his impression of Jian Chen had only become rather mysterious. Within the two-world mountains, Jian Chen hid his presence and flew through the mountains and forests silently like a ghost. He had already expanded the senses of his soul. Under his precise control, it expanded into the surroundings carefully in an extremely well-hidden way. He knew without even thinking that the Dark Star Emperor had entered the two-world mountains for two matters. The first was for the droplet of essence blood lost in there by the Lord of Dark Night City, while the other was obviously for him, who was disguised as Kuan Tian. There might have even been a small possibility that he had come for San Ran. When San Ran died, he created a very large disturbance in the depths of the two-world mountains. He basically alarmed all the primordial realm life-devouring beasts in there. The startling news must have reached the capital city a long time ago. Moreover, my entry into the depths of the two-world mountains under Kuan Tian's guise was no secret either, so they must have guessed I'm in danger. I just wonder whether Sen Ran's tracks have been divulged or not. If the capital city knew about Sen Ran's tracks, that would be two Hall Masters of the Dark Star race facing danger at the same time. This is something that can shake up the entire Dark Star race, so it'll definitely have alarmed the Dark Star Emperor. The Dark Star race cannot afford to lose two Hall Masters, Jian Chen thought. He knew he was forced to end his visit to the 100 Saint City now with the Dark Star Emperor's appearance. He had to reassume his identity of Kuan Tian and return to the 5th Divine Hall. Very soon, Jian Chen reached the depths of the two-world mountains. Along the way, he constantly sensed for the imprints he had left behind. He needed to return to the lake where he hid Kuan Tian's god artifacts before the Dark Star Emperor and retrieve his items. By now, the depths of the two-world mountains had already become filled with thunderous beast roars. With how invincible he was, the Dark Star Emperor allowed his presence to erupt, charging straight into the depths without any intentions of concealing it. As a result, he alarmed all the life-devouring beasts in there immediately. All the primordial realm life-devouring beasts in the two-world mountains had already begun to move, converging towards the Dark Star Emperor from all directions. The Dark Star Emperor was simply too powerful. Even with his strength suppressed here, he was still completely fearless. Even all the life-devouring beasts in the two-world mountains were unable to strike fear into him. The presence he gave off turned him into a dazzling beacon of light. Who knew whether it was a declaration of his arrival to the life-devouring beasts in the two-world mountains, or to serve as a guide for the two endangered hall masters?
He flew around in there aimlessly.
He would constantly fly before halting, sensing the surroundings carefully as he hovered in the air.
Jian Chen concealed all of his presence carefully.
He sensed the Dark Star Emperor's position from afar and thought sternly. He truly is an existence on par with chaotic primes. Even in the depths of the two-world mountains, he still possesses battle prowess at the 9th heavenly layer of Infinite Prime.
Perhaps the Dark Star Emperor can no longer be referred to as an Infinite Prime anymore.
Apart from the limitations of his cultivation, all other aspects of him are completely on par with chaotic primes.
If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2805. The Invincible Emperor. At this moment, several of the closest life-devouring beasts had already approached the Dark Star Emperor. However, they stopped several dozen kilometers away, gazing in his direction. Their somewhat intelligent eyes were filled with a fearful light. They were actually afraid to approach him. The Dark Star Emperor's strength and the startling presence he radiated with actually resulted in a form of deterrence towards these primordial realm life-devouring beasts. Intense fear even appeared in the gazes of a few primordial realm life-devouring beasts.
It was as if they could remember that they had once suffered quite a lot because of the Dark Star Emperor.
Swish! At this moment, the Dark Star Emperor moved. Invincible, he ran amok in the depths of the two-world mountains, flying off in another direction.
The direction he flew in just happened to have a hesitating primordial realm life-devouring beast that seemed to be waiting for the arrival of reinforcements. Now that it saw the Dark Star Emperor flying towards it, it immediately shuddered and dodged to one side in a hurry.
However, it was still too slow. Several dozen kilometers was just a single step in the eyes of the Dark Star Emperor. He arrived beside the dodging life-devouring beast in a flash and seemed to find the life-devouring beast's existence to be blocking his path, so he waved his hand casually.
As he waved his hand, shocking energy immediately surged forth, condensing into a hand of energy 300 meters across before slapping towards the life-devouring beast mercilessly. In the depths of the two-world mountains, the Dark Star Emperor's strength had been suppressed, preventing him from using all of it.
But even with that being the case, his attack was still extremely startling.
Bang! Faced with a hand of energy, the life-devouring beast that was only at the 3rd layer of Infinite Prime could not even dodge.
It was struck perfectly, producing a miserable wail as the strike launched it into the distance.
As it flew away, it smashed through all the trees in its path before slamming into a mountain viciously and becoming deeply embedded in it.
The hand was extremely terrifying.
Not only had it heavily injured a primordial realm life-devouring beast, but the brutal energy shockwaves directly turned into a destructive storm as it ripped through the surroundings, tearing all the vegetation in a range of several dozen kilometers to shreds.
The shockwave from the attack alone had purged all life within a range of several dozen kilometers, turning it into flat land. When the Dark Star Emperor injured this life-devouring beast, the other primordial realm life-devouring beasts lurking nearby did not come up to offer any assistance. Instead, they all backed down instinctively, their eyes filled with fear. However, the Dark Star Emperor did not pay any attention to them. Perhaps the Dark Star Emperor had never even taken a proper look at them, having only attacked this life-devouring beast purely because it blocked his way. Afterwards, he strode off in the air and vanished with a flash. In a few steps, he appeared several tens of thousand kilometers away before stopping again and sensing closely. This time, he seemed to sense something.
His eyes immediately flashed, and he took off, flying through the forest and arriving at the lair of a primordial realm life-devouring beast in the end. The life-devouring beast that the lair belonged to fled immediately like it was facing a plague, hiding 100 kilometers away as it stared at the Dark Star Emperor vigilantly.
At the same time, it glanced into the distance every now and then. Its gaze revealed some impatience. The stronger allies were almost here. The Dark Star Emperor extended his hand. In the next moment, a space ring flew into his hand as a streak of light. The space ring was what the Lord of Dark Knight City, Bai Jin, had lost.
Looking at the space ring, a gleam of cold light immediately flashed through the Dark Star Emperor's eyes. Afterwards, there was a crack, and the space ring was reduced to dust in his hand under the tremendous pressure. Apart from the droplet of essence blood in there that remained fine, everything in the space ring had been reduced to specks of dust. Afterwards, the Dark Star Emperor extended his hand towards the life-devouring beast that owned the lair before suddenly closing it.
Currently, 100 kilometers separated them. With that, the space 100 kilometers away suddenly showed signs of collapse, as if an absolute power had engulfed the region, causing the space to distort violently. The life-devouring beast there felt its body suddenly tighten. An unfathomable pressure appeared from all directions, squeezing and twisting its body. Its colossal body rapidly shrank under the terrifying pressure. As it shrank, the inky green blood within its body began to ooze out from its pores. Its skin cracked as its flesh and blood erupted out. There was even the sound of breaking bones. It opened its mouth and howled painfully as its eyes began to bulge. The pressure had almost squeezed its eyes out of their sockets. A primordial realm life-devouring beast that even Hall Masters of the Dark Star race had to handle cautiously was actually so puny before the Dark Star Emperor. Just closing his hand was enough power to forcefully crush this life-devouring beast. This was not the laws of space. It was simply a grasp and method of energy usage. The Dark Star Emperor's strength was truly terrifying. His usage and control over his powers had already reached a point that was chilling to most primordial realm experts of the Saints' world. But at this moment, an ear-piercing whistle arrived.
A bone arrow pierced through the air, penetrating countless towering trees and peaks along the way as it shot towards the Dark Star Emperor with unbelievable speed. The power within the bone arrow was so great that it even seemed to be enough to rival the Dark Star Emperor.
The Dark Star Emperor's eyes flashed with cold light.
Suddenly, he raised his other hand and great power condensed on the tip of his finger.
He pointed at the incoming bone arrow.
Bang! The bone arrow turned into a blur, colliding with the Dark Star Emperor's finger with unbelievable speed. A heavy boom immediately swept out into the surroundings as a visible shockwave, reducing all the vegetation within several hundred kilometers to shreds.
Even the ground became covered in cracks.
The power of the bone arrow did not disperse. It lingered in the air, radiating with tremendous power and pressure, locked in stalemate against the Dark Star Emperor's finger.
If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters.
Chapter 2806. All mobilized along the way, the invincible strength that the Dark Star Emperor demonstrated filled the primordial realm life-devouring beasts with fear. None of the life-devouring beasts he had seen earlier actually possessed the courage to fight him. But now, a bone arrow from the depths of the vegetation was actually able to reach a stalemate with the Dark Star Emperor.
It had not been repelled or injured in a single strike like the other weaker life-devouring beasts.
All of this suggested that the life-devouring beast that had launched the bone arrow must possess strength extremely close to the Dark Star Emperor, or even equal strength.
Mid-air, the bone arrow constantly released great power in the form of resplendent light. As a terrifying attack that could even make the Hall Masters of the Dark Star race pale, it constantly pushed against the Dark Star Emperor. The tip of the Dark Star Emperor's figure also condensed terrifying power.
The energy was so pure that it was enough to phase any primordial realm expert of the Saints' world.
It had almost become tangible, basically having crystallized already. It poked an inch out from the tip of his figure, clashing with the bone arrow and wearing each other down. But in the end, the bone arrow was still the one to run out of energy. Without the support of any backup energy sources, it was not the Dark Star Emperor's opponent at the end of the day. Just when it was about to run out of energy, it turned around and disappeared back into the depths of the forest. It was also at this moment that the hazy white sky enveloped by thick mist near the Dark Star Emperor suddenly darkened. A huge shadow fell rapidly from the sky with a colossal pressure, directly engulfing the Dark Star Emperor below. This was an extremely large primordial realm life-devouring beast. The pressure that it gave off was so powerful that it did not pale in comparison to the Dark Star Emperor. As it fell down, an extremely sharp bone arrow had already shot out, stabbing straight towards the Dark Star Emperor. This life-devouring beast that could rival the Dark Star Emperor was clearly the owner of the bone arrow from earlier. The Dark Star Emperor remained calm. His presence rose up as indescribably pure energy erupted like a tsunami. He directly punched out. Boom! His punch moved faster than the bone arrow.
Before the arrow had even approached him, he had already landed his attack on the life-devouring beast. There was a deafening boom, and the falling shadow of the life-devouring beast immediately halted before the punch actually pushed it away. In the end, there was a heavy rumble, and its powerful body struck the ground heavily like a mountain, shaking up the surroundings. However, it had managed to land with balance, having endured the powerful attack of the Darkstar Emperor. This powerful life-devouring beast did not suffer any wounds, as if its hide was thick enough to completely endure the attacks from the Darkstar Emperor.
Only now could its figure be made out. It was a life-devouring beast several thousand meters in length, resembling an earth drake. There were 9 huge bone arrows protruding from its back. The arrows could clearly change in size.
During the first long-ranged attack, it had only been around 10 meters long, but looking at it now, every single one of them were several hundred meters long.
Roar! It was clearly not the first time that the Earth Drake and the Darkstar Emperor had met. Its eyes were filled with hatred.
As soon as it landed on the ground, it let out a deep roar and directly charged at the Darkstar Emperor.
Immediately, a battle that could shake up the entire mountain range erupted between the Earth Drake and the Darkstar Emperor. Booms rang out constantly, as if they wanted to bring the sky down. The Earth Drake had also reached the 9th heavenly layer of Infinite Prime, at the same realm of cultivation as the Darkstar Emperor. However, as they clashed, it was clearly slightly weaker than the Darkstar Emperor. The Darkstar Emperor was simply too powerful.
He had already been suppressed by the Grand Exalt's will in the Two World Mountains, such that he was unable to unleash his full strength, yet he was still able to maintain some advantage as he faced the strongest life-devouring beast of the Two World Mountains under these circumstances.
He had the upper hand, but it was still very difficult for the Darkstar Emperor to defeat the Earth Drake. That was because the Earth Drake's defenses were far too powerful. None of the attacks from the Darkstar Emperor were able to cause any severe injuries.
Even if he left behind a few small wounds, they would close up in the blink of an eye in the face of the Earth Drake's terrifying life force.
And the Earth Drake would constantly replenish its energy within the Two World Mountains. As long as it remained here, its energy would recover constantly. It was truly endless. As they clashed, the primordial realm life-devouring beasts that rushed over all arrived one after another. They joined in on the battle to encircle the Darkstar Emperor with the Earth Drake. The Darkstar Emperor was in an encirclement of several dozen primordial realm life-devouring beasts. Jian Chen watched the Darkstar Emperor's movements closely from elsewhere in the mountain range. The Darkstar Emperor did not disguise his presence, and the disturbance from the fighting was just too great. With Jian Chen's strength at the primordial realm, he knew what was going on even without paying special attention. However, when he discovered that the Darkstar Emperor could actually hold off all the life-devouring beasts of the entire mountain range alone, it left him slightly shocked. If the Darkstar Emperor displayed such great strength in the territory of the Darkstar race, he would not be surprised at all, as the Darkstar Emperor already possessed the battle prowess of a chaotic prime. Even killing all these life-devouring beasts by himself would make perfect sense. But this was the Two World Mountains. He remained so powerful despite having his strength suppressed, which forced Jian Chen to re-evaluate the Darkstar Emperor's strength. At this moment, Jian Chen's expression changed. Several million kilometers away, the senses of his soul discovered someone familiar. It was the Vice Hallmaster of the 5th Divine Hall, Do Wujin. He had arrived in the depths of the mountains too, but unlike how brazen the Darkstar Emperor had been, Do Wujin kept his presence completely concealed, searching through the depths carefully. He constantly used a secret technique in an attempt to sense for something. He did not alarm any life-devouring beasts. He even went out of his way to avoid God King life-devouring beasts. Jian Chen could discover Do Wujin, but Do Wujin was unable to discover Jian Chen, as even the senses of outsiders would be greatly limited here, let alone members of the Darkstar race. Jian Chen's soul was different too. Combined with him purposefully hiding it, even if he ran into people at higher cultivation levels than him, they would still struggle to detect the senses of his soul in the unique environment of the Two World Mountains. Soon after he discovered Do Wujin, the senses of Jian Chen's soul enveloped another area. 500 kilometers from Do Wujin, the 10th Hallmaster, Feng Shui, had appeared too. It was not only the two of them. Jian Chen even spotted the Vice Hallmaster of the 7th Divine Hall, Enlai. The Two World Mountains were so large that even if Jian Chen expanded the senses of his soul completely, he would struggle to envelope even a tenth of it. Yet,
He actually managed to discover 3 primordial realm experts of the Dark Star race in such a short amount of time within the range his soul covered. This immediately made Jian Chen shiver as an absurd thought crossed his head. Surely the primordial realm experts of the Dark Star race had not all been mobilized. But in the next moment, he took off in a flash and rapidly flew towards the lake where he had left behind Kuan Tian's armor and sword. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2807. Reunion. The senses of his soul grasped every single movement of Dou Wujin, Enlai, and Feng Shui clearly. The 3 of them were not too far apart, and they had not been moving about. They all remained still, using secret techniques to sense for something. All of this pointed to the fact that they all possessed a unique searching ability. Perhaps this searching ability could directly detect members of the Dark Star race within a certain range, or perhaps it could detect a certain object. However, Jian Chen guessed that this searching ability probably detected a specific item. For example, even the Vice Hall Master of the 7th Divine Hall, Duff, a first heavenly layer infinite prime, could search for a single droplet of essence blood through a space ring in this vast region of the 2-world mountains. Such a venture was like looking for a needle in a haystack. When I left the 5th Divine Hall, I had left everything that belonged to Kuan Tian in the 5th Divine Hall already. I didn't even bring Sacred Feather's essence blood with me. All I took was Kuan Tian's armor and sword. The armor and sword were all repaired after being damaged. If I've guessed correctly, the Dark Star race should be able to sense the existence of god artifacts within a certain range. I hope they haven't found the 2 god artifacts I hid in the den of the primordial realm life-devouring beast. Though, even if they find it, it should be fine. I'll just have to come up with some excuses to explain myself. Though it's still better to avoid this altogether, thought Jian Chen. Although he had spent some time as the 5th Hall Master already, he obviously did not have a complete understanding of the methods and secret techniques that the Dark Star race was capable of in such a short time frame. However, he did make preparations beforehand and had come up with a method of dealing with this a long time ago. The next part of his journey was smooth sailing. Under Jian Chen's careful concealment, let alone God King life-devouring beasts, even primordial realm experts would struggle to detect him. Before long, Jian Chen returned to the lake where he hid Kuan Tian's god artifacts by following the imprints he had left behind. The primordial realm life-devouring beast that dwelled in the lake had already left this place when the Dark Star Emperor's presence leaked out, rushing off towards the Dark Star Emperor. By now, Jian Chen had already recovered Kuan Tian's appearance. Even his presence was exactly the same as Kuan Tian's. However, it was just withdrawn, so not even a sliver leaked out. He carefully lurked nearby, cautiously extending the senses of his soul in all directions as secretively as possible. He covered a range of several million kilometers. Only after confirming there were no members of the Dark Star race there did he retrieve his 2 god artifacts. He extended his hand, reaching into the empty space before him. With that, the space seemed to become a surface of water, undulating with spatial ripples. A small part of Jian Chen's arm vanished into the space there. This did not last for too long, just a few seconds. When Jian Chen pulled his arm out again, the 2 god artifacts he had hid there were now in his hand. Afterwards, there was a flash, and the armor was already equipped on him. Now, he had already become the 5th Hall Master, Kuan Tian, again. Several million kilometers away from Jian Chen in the depths of the 2-world mountains, the Vice Hall Master Dou Wujin currently avoided all life-devouring beasts with his presence completely concealed as he carefully searched this region. I hope the Hall Master is fine. He has obtained a fragment of the Star Beast's memories after all. He entered the 2-world mountains in search of a fortuitous opportunity to drastically increase his strength. To be blessed by the Star Beast, it means the Hall Master is a person of great luck and fortune. He'll definitely be fine. As Dou Wujin searched carefully with his secret technique, he secretly prayed for Kuan Tian inside. Their 5th Divine Hall had been oppressed by the 7th Divine Hall for all these years. Now, their Hall Master had finally broken through, giving them the strength to contend with the 7th Divine Hall. As a matter of fact, their 5th Divine Hall even had a chance of surpassing the 7th Divine Hall as their Hall Master's strength continued to grow, which left the 3 Vice Hall Masters very satisfied. As a result, Dou Wujin believed the 5th Divine Hall could not go without their Hall Master. Otherwise, with everything the Fifth Divine Hall and Servant Divine Hall had been through across all these years, life would definitely become difficult for the three Vice Hall Masters. Although they would never kill one another, the harassment they would face definitely would not decrease. This time, the primordial realm experts that the Fifth Divine Hall had sent in was not just Dou Wujin. Bing Yuan and Taro were present too, except several million kilometers existed between each of them. They formed a huge net that swept through the depths of the mountains. Each person was responsible for a region as they undertook a detailed search operation. Tian, where are you? Come out, please. The 10th Hall Master, Feng Shui, could be described as the most anxious one out of the group, and she became more and more worried as time went on. In particular, when she remembered the news of the presence of several dozen primordial realm life-devouring beasts acting up in the depths from a few days ago, she struggled to remain calm. Her relationship with Tian was anything but ordinary. She even worried more about Tian than the three Vice Hall Masters of the Fifth Divine Hall. Getty, how dare you force Tian into the depths of the Two-World Mountains? If anything happens to Tian, I'll never spare you. Even though I'm not your opponent, I'll definitely make things difficult for you. Feng Shui ground her teeth. She rapidly flew through the mountains. With her cultivation at the fifth heavenly layer, she could cross several hundred kilometers in an instant even when purposefully slowing down to conceal herself. Looks like Feng Shui is really quite attached to Tian. That makes it even less clever for me to see her. On another side, Jian Chen withdrew the senses of his soul before flying in Dou Wujin's direction under Tian's identity. As he did that, Jian Chen continued to keep an eye on Dou Wujin's actions, wanting to confirm just what method Dou Wujin was using to find him. Very soon, only 10,000 kilometers existed between him and Dou Wujin. It was also at this moment that the armor and sword that belonged to Tian suddenly emitted a strange pulse. At the same time, Dou Wujin shuddered violently 10,000 kilometers away. His gaze suddenly shifted in Jian Chen's direction and became filled with delight. Without any hesitation, he immediately flew over as quickly as he could. Just as I had expected. They can search for the two god artifacts on me, but looking at the distance, it only seems to respond within a range of 10,000 kilometers, Jian Chen thought. 10,000 kilometers could be crossed in a few seconds to primordial realm experts like Dou Wujin. Very soon, he turned into a blur and arrived before Jian Chen like a ghost. Hall Master. From afar, he spotted Jian Chen through the thick mist and immediately ravished with joy. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.